Hey guys, welcome to Layman's Terms Podcast, the place where we talk about really big topics using the smallest words possible. I'm Danny the bartender,
And I'm Tommy the trash man.
and together we're just two guys trying to explain the ever-changing world around us the only way that we know how. And today we're going to get into some stuff. Me and Tommy are both dealing with allergies. I feel like we're not the only ones. It must be allergy season. Tom, how you feeling?
I'm feeling a little groggy.
I'm in the groggy state too.
It's like pollen is just everywhere, dude. It's all over. My car's black. It's covered. Every time I wash it, it's just fucking covered. I have my window in the front of my apartment I have 3 big windows, and I have a black table right next to it. So like every other fucking day, I'm wiping that down. It's just covered. And it's just one of those things, like you just wake up and I just have a little bit of a headache and just feel a little stuffy.
You're just a little bit more angrier, just a little bit more, just a touch.
Just a little bit more fucking just bullshit to add to your day,
And you can't figure out, is it allergies or am I just a grumpy old man?
That's yeah, that's the number one question, because I'm like, I don't know what's going on. Like, I am 40. And there's a lot of things, a lot of changes. And every time I'm like really moody, I'm like, is this just me being old? Like, and it's a really, really ridiculous thing for me to compare it to. But like, I'm pretty sure, and correct me if I'm wrong. Remember that song, like, Whoop, There It Is?
Yes.
Like, I don't know. I forget who sings
Whoop,
it. Was it like,
it is.
yeah, was it like 69 Boys or something like that?
I don't know. It sounds like a great name for a band.
Yeah. But I'm pretty sure it was that song, but I could be wrong, where it was either at the beginning of the music video or the end. I can't recall, because this came out in like the mid 90s when we were young bucks. There's this old guy and he's like, "Hey, you damn kids, get off my lawn."
Oh yeah. He starts off in the beginning. I know the guy. I know you're
right. So
that's
I
how
feel
it
like,
opens up. Yeah.
so I feel like I'm like, is that me now?
That's you. Yeah, that's you.
Like,
I
I don't know.
I always laugh. Well, anytime you get close to that feeling, it's fucking weird, because I have the feeling too, where even when you just say something like "fucking kids today," it's like I don't. No matter how I say it verbally or in my head, I hear like "fucking kids today," and then I picture that guy. Yeah, and I'm like, oh my god.
You picture that old dude that you busted on as a young buck.
Yeah.
And you're like, dude, I'm that guy now.
Well, I think I've said this on here before, but this is a real feeling that I have whenever I watch Home Alone. And I think I said this to you before, like when I was watching Home Alone, at the time I was watching it, everybody used to tell me I looked like Macaulay Culkin, right? We were real little.
Right.
And I think I made the joke somewhere, but it was like, here all this time I thought I was Macaulay Culkin, and I'm the old man that lives across the street. The guy that saves him with the shovel.
The pigeon guy, right?
Yeah, like in other words, like I'm the old man that lives across the street that everybody thinks is the creepy guy, but if you get to know him, he's all right.
Right. So yeah, man, and just I've been working a lot more. So my bar at the retirement home, I think I talked about it last time, right? Did I mention that we open back up?
You mentioned that you open back up. You didn't mention anything about having to throw that chick out and get security.
Yeah. So I got some old lady really drunk. And, that's part of the problem with serving older people, because you don't know. Well, I shouldn't even just say just older people, because it's really anybody. Somebody could be drinking at their house all day and they walk into your bar and they kind of seem okay at the moment. And then you give them a beer or two and then they're fucking like falling all over the place. And you're like, what the fuck is going on?
Well, I see it at my bar with everyone, because what it is, and the older people probably aren't abusing them, but it's that pills are a big thing now, whether you're fucking 20 or you're 80, Yeah. And I think that it's hard to understand what the progression is of someone who's on 2 Percocets, and they have one fucking drink. Next thing you know, they're fucking lying on the floor. The ambulance is fucking there, and they're asking you what you gave them to drink, and you're like, I swear to fucking God, I gave them one fucking drink.
Right, right. And that was the thing too. Like
And that
prior,
happened. That happened. What I just said to you has happened to me like and more times than I could sit here and go through.
yeah. And then it's like you feel like a jerk off because you're like, oh fuck, man. You're sitting there serving the person.
Well,
And
the worst is when you're standing over the fucking paramedic. I'm serious. And they're like looking at you in the face and they're like, there's no way this person had one drink. You're like, I swear to fucking God, man. I swear to
right.
God.
Meanwhile, they're looking at you like, yeah, you're just covering your ass.
Yeah, like they're making me get their check. Then somebody's fucking telling them, well, I think he might have gave him an extra fucking drink. You're like, dude, what the fuck?
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
not me.
And so that was the other thing too. Like in my bar, we would have certain days they would have like hors d'oeuvres. So they would throw some shrimp out, maybe like a crab dip, and then we would always have pretzels, chips, and peanuts. You know what I mean? So they're sitting there talking, and at least they're filling their stomach up with a little bit of something, something. We haven't had that now. Luckily, we went back to like bag chips and things like that. But yeah, it was my second day back, and this lady comes in, give her a glass of wine. I didn't recognize her, so I was like, oh, I don't really know who she is. Like, because I pretty much have regulars all the time. Like, we might have some newer residents, but for the most part, I know my drinkers. And she comes in, she has a glass of wine. I'm like, all right. She has a second glass, and I'm checking her out, and she's fine. Comes back for the third glass, and I mean, we're talking 2 hours, maybe she's been in there, maybe an hour and a half. And she goes back to the table and spills it. But I was kind of busy. I was talking to somebody else, so I didn't see if she like fell and spilled it or somebody bumped into her. Like I didn't really see,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? But that's a visual cue for you to pick up on. And you know, I give her another glass. She proceeds, for the next half hour. She drinks the third glass of wine. She gets up, and her friend that was with her gets up, and I could kind of see she like wobbles into her. And I was like, all right, well, maybe she just stood up, kind of lost her balance. But she was like, as soon as she started to walk out the door, she like kind of like fell on this woman's back almost, and was like, the woman was like holding her up and just kind of froze. So like I had to run out, and I got to be like, are you all right? Like, what's going on? Like, she's like, oh, I just, I don't know. And I'm like, oh boy. So I'm like, okay, there's a chair right there. I got to sit her down. I got to call security. Security's got to come. They bring a wheelchair. They bring her back. We got to ask her like if she ate today, all this fucking stuff.
But
But again,
you got more factors to think about than me because you literally have to think like, are they close to death? Are they fucking
yeah,
like what is this they're 80 years old. Whereas like for me, if somebody started acting certain ways, I'd be like, okay, that's a trigger. Like they're on their way, like they're on their way to something, some kind of fucking special place. But for you have to like, they're already fucking stumbling around. They're already having trouble walking. You know what I mean? Like if a 20-year-old gets up and they're having a little trouble walking, I'm like, maybe that guy's had too much. It's an
well,
80-year-old lady.
let's rephrase that. Danny's not serving 20-year-olds. He's serving 21-year-olds.
Well, you never know.
Um,
I probably am serving fucking 20-year-olds. I don't even
uh,
know.
yeah, but and also like if you see a fucking young kid, he stumbles or she stumbles and falls, they're probably just gonna lay there and laugh, you know what I mean? Or be like,
Yeah.
get up and dust it off. These fucking people, if they fall, they could break a hip of their back,
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like if somebody, if it, like you said, if a 20-year-old fell, I'm like, like you just can judge how they act. If a fucking
right.
80-year-old fell for no reason at all, it's
Oh
like
yeah.
you're like, oh my God, this could be the end of this person.
This could be the end. So yeah, man, that was like my second day back, and that was like, oh fuck, man, we got a new CEO, I don't want complaints and all that. But then so Danny's like laughing. Oh, it's the reality of the job. But then then this week I got a woman, because right now I know this is a little bit strange to talk about, but it's a different aspect of bartending and life as you get older. This is what you have to look forward to. So we right now, because of COVID and all the and some still restrictions, not all of the residents are allowed to come in. So we still have some residents that are in medical care. They can't be on their own. So they're dealing with some things. And this one woman who was a regular, I mean, she was an absolute beast at the bar, huge personality, great, very outspoken. She was always pretty much one of the people that was always the center of attention. She comes down with her daughter, and right away I'm like, oh man, because I know this is going to break her heart. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So as she walks in, like she's not even allowed to be in the bar. So as she walks in, I walk out the other door to go catch her, the nurse and her daughter. And I got to explain to them, listen, I'm sorry, but we can't have you guys in. Like, we can't even have guests. So our daughter's a guest. Like, we can't have them in. And again, this woman is a firecracker. Like, she's got some balls, and she tells you how, she tells you how she feels. So I'm explaining to her, everybody's kind of like on edge because they're like, oh, this is bullshit, blah, 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 blah. So I go in and I see her, and she looks at me and she's like, oh, Jesus, you look old. She says that to me. She says that to me.
Fucking bitch.
And I was like, well, you're looking younger. And she said, oh, get the hell out of here, you damn liar. And I was like, you look good. You look good, kid. And luckily there was somebody there to kind of was like, listen, your daughter wants to go back to your room and have a drink there. And she's like, oh, well, I guess I can't stay here then. And she's all excited to see her friends. And as she gets up, she gets on her walker and she's leaving. She turns around and she's like, I'll tell you what, any of you ladies want to come see me Sunday, if you're not doing anything, you come to my room and you can drink for free.
Oh, she's taking your fucking business.
Yeah, yeah.
Bitch called you old and fucking
I
took your
know.
business.
I know. I was like, hey, listen, I had a rough year, I got a lot of grays popping in. But yeah, so back to that normal grind. So it's working Mondays and Tuesdays. I got picking up trash, later on slinging some cocktails, mostly wine, but so it's long days. So
Yeah.
that's kind of like what's been taking us a little bit longer to get on the podcast.
Yeah,
But
I'm just working around the clock. It's not even, that I could say a million things. It's different. It's a little different. It's whatever. But the whole thing is that nobody wants to work in the fucking restaurant business anymore. Well, because they're all getting unemployment. So fucking it's 10 o'clock in the morning for me till fucking close, which could be 10, 11, 12. So that's my shifts every time I'm fucking working. I am a little excited though, because I'm going to the Nick DiPaolo show on Friday. He'll be down
nice.
here doing stand up. So that'll be pretty cool.
Nice.
I mean, I don't know. I don't even know if I'm going to get to hang out with him or whatever, but I'm going to the show, which is pretty cool.
Dude, I'll tell you what, man. I was just saying this yesterday. Everywhere I look, I see hiring signs everywhere.
Yeah, nobody
Like,
wants to work, dude.
and I'm like, this is insane.
Nobody
But
wants to work.
I mean, look, as a person that's making, I don't know what the unemployment benefits are. They still like 600 hours a week.
It's if you're getting like the full on benefits, it's like 750.
Wow.
But that's what I'm trying to say. Yeah. So your benefits are like, if you were getting like the max benefits, you're getting like 430, and then they put 300 on top of it.
Yeah. So I mean, that's pretty decent money.
Oh, if you ask me, it's what I would say about it. This was the problem that people were worried about in the beginning. Is it's actually like you're making a good, sound financial decision to not go to work.
right.
But another thing that's happening now is like what we're dealing with all like the Mexicans and stuff at our job, and all the kitchen guys, whatever, is like nobody, like basically they are in a position where they get to hold out. So you got to pay like $21. So that whole thing that we always talk about with the minimum wage and everything,
Mm-hmm.
you're literally having guys that, are quite possibly illegal. You know what I mean?
Right.
And they're like, they're working a couple days, and then they're coming up to the manager and saying, I'm not going to work here because I know that I can get $20 over here. Because what's going on is nobody wants to work. So even certain people can stay home. So the only way that they'll come in and work is if you pay them 20, 21. So we're paying our dishwasher like $21 an hour. And you figure that's the bottom thing. So like even my manager gets nervous when she talks about it with other people, because then that shit starts to spread around the kitchen, and then you got to pay everybody else comparably, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
So
dude, it's absolutely crazy. And but at the same time, I don't know how long this package is going to last till.
it's guaranteed until September, but
Wow.
that's the prop, dude. This is the thing that people don't understand that drives me nuts is you know, it's the thing that fucking pisses me off is I'm pretty sure when we were arguing about this, say 9 months ago, not me and you, but the public and
Right, right,
politicians, the Republicans were saying that you're going to cause people to not go back to work. You're going to
right.
cause more problems by giving people guaranteed things. The best thing to do is to open up. Then the Republicans even talked about giving people a bonus for going to work. In other words, okay, get off unemployment, but when you go back to work, we'll still give you that extra 300 or whatever.
Right.
And of course, the backlash was like, the Republicans don't want to fucking, sponsor the Family Act or whatever the hell it is. And
CARES
now we're
Act, yeah.
sitting, now we're sitting in a place where people won't go back to work. And Biden even commented on it the other day, and he said that this is preposterous. There's no reports that or no data to back up the fact that people aren't going back to work for whatever reason. However, I also just got an email because I'm still like on the list of unemployment people, and our governor just reinstated. See, they don't even have to look for a job. You know, when you're on unemployment, you have to like show that you're looking for a job.
Mhm.
Well, because it's under this emergency act, people don't even have to like when you file your stuff, it's like, did you look for work this week? If you said no, underneath it, it says normally you'd have to supply like information as to why you couldn't look for work or why you were refused work or references and applications that you sent for work. But because this is the emergency act, you do not have to give that information for now. Well, our governor just reinstated that they have to look. So I think that if they start doing shit like that, it'll push people off of it.
Yeah.
Like if you have to show that you applied because there's too many places. Dude, it's like you drive by some of the best. I'm actually thinking about going now and applying at some of these places because some of the best bars where you would never be able to bartend at because people have been there for 100 years,
Yeah.
giant fucking banners outside, like hiring bartenders immediately. Like these are places that you couldn't even get a busboy job at because the busboy's trying to be a bartender,
Right. Well, what's crazy about that too is though, I would imagine that once the CARES Act or whatever, when the unemployment packages run out, then people are going to be scrambling
Oh yeah.
where you can hop in now and get yourself in a better position.
Well, this is what I foresee. That's kind of what I meant by looking for a job, because I imagine that my biggest fear in the beginning of this was that there was going to be no jobs available. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
And what I didn't foresee was that people were going to not want to go back to work till a certain point. So therefore, I feel anything before that deadline is your time to get in for a job. Now, the shit that I want to warn everybody about, because this is the shit I see that's about to happen, is when that fucking deadline's up, you're going to instantaneously have people that are broke, people that have used all their unemployment. Their rent is going to be due because that act that tells them they don't have to pay their rent is going to be lifted, and they're going to be scrambling for jobs. So all at once, if this doesn't get sorted out before that deadline, all at once, everybody's going to be looking for a job, and everyone's going to have the bills are going to come due, and they're probably not going to get the job. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that there, I would imagine September might be a very troublesome time for, mortgages, landlords, uh, unemployment, and just like whatever numbers are being covered up by the fact that everybody's getting 700 hours a week right now. I could just see that shit all hitting a wall in September.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of economists and all. They're talking about, inflation and some things we're seeing at the gas pumps, lumber prices. There's a lot of cause for concern. And there's one thing that I thought was kind of interesting that somebody pointed out about Biden. They were like, listen, this guy, because a lot of people kind of voted for him thinking he was going to be, sense of normalcy, a moderate Democrat. And somebody pointed out, like, the chances of him being a two-term president are pretty slim. I mean, he's probably only going to do one term. Like we said on this podcast, I don't even know that he'll last for 4 years. So they were like, he's probably going to be extremely, extremely progressive because what's he got to lose? He's only going to be one and done. You know what I mean? So like he just wants to push as many like radical agendas as possible. And if they stick and hit and work, then he could be like, look, see what I did?
And well,
Um,
and not to interrupt you, but to add to what you're saying, the thing that I just feel though that I don't agree with in a sense is like Biden is not like this is the scary part that makes me wonder who's really pulling the strings, because it's not like, oh, Biden can finally do all the things he wanted to do. If that was the case, then I would understand it more. But it's like I feel that they're trying to do everything they can do while they have the puppet guy up there. You know what I mean? Because these are not things that Biden, it ain't like things that he supported his whole life that he's been denied on. Now he finally is be able to push him through. I mean, he wrote the fucking crime bill. You know what I
yeah,
mean? So
right.
so it just seems like like people are using this opportunity to push as much through as they can. And so my theory, when everybody would say all that stuff about Kamala being like, oh, he's going to drop out and then Kamala's going to be the president, I actually think that he'll last his full term now, because I think that the main reason why there's that idea of the possibility of like her basically sitting on the bench waiting her turn, because I actually think that he's trying to do so much shit that if anything goes wrong, like let's just say people start to get mad at him, they start pulling up shit about his son, people like even Democrats and different states start to attack Biden, then that's when you'll see why Kamala's there. You know, does that make sense? In other words, like he's basically trying to do as much as he can. And if he does, if he goes through 4 years without a problem, he'll just probably be a one-term president. I think the idea of Kamala stepping in is more if he gets too much fucking attack for the shit he's doing, and maybe they could keep it on Biden, and then fucking he'll just be replaced by Kamala. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I know one thing. There's a lot going on in the world, and listen, being a little bit extra busy recently, I don't have as much time to dedicate to kind of like research things, and I'm just exhausted by my Mondays and Tuesdays. Now it's like Wednesday, and even my Wednesday like it's just busy, and so I go Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and I'm just exhausted. And I have seen some things that are a little bit concerning. What's going on in Israel with Palestine, which is nothing new. I mean, this has been going on for I don't even know how long. But there was like the recent attacks on Israel, it was actually, I mean, dude, as horrible as it was actually pretty cool to see their defense at work. What do they call it? The Iron Curtain. And they were shooting off, I think they said 1,000 rockets were launched at Israel. And you just see all these missiles getting shot up and being intercepted
I'll
by
have to
this.
check that out. I didn't see it.
It's dude, it's absolutely wild. And I follow some different people. This one girl was posting some video from a friend of hers that sent her from Israel. And then we also have what's going on in Colombia. So I have a friend that lives there, and I actually reached out to her to potentially have her on the podcast. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. I would love for it to happen. But for people that don't know, I mean, there's been some video servicing. I mean, it looks like all out civil war in there. I mean, it's crazy, like shit that's going on in the streets. So I reached out to her because that's the thing. I heard different, conflicting reports. I heard it was over COVID lockdowns. So I inboxed her and asked her, and so she said they're sending the police, military, and the military against the people. And she said it's not because of COVID; it's because of all kind of absurd things the government is doing. They're stealing our money, but they made a reform where food, public services, fuel, transportation, water, light service, and much more is going to have taxes. They're planning to approve a health reform where they're planning to spend all the money we pay for our health insurance in personal business not related with health. They're also planning to get rid of public hospitals and many other things. She said our government is truly one of the worst we've ever had. But to be honest, everything is fucked up because of all the people they have killed for fighting for our rights. So that's craziness. And I'll tell you what, man, you could kind of say what you want about Trump, but one thing that kind of you didn't see some of the unrest that we're seeing. I mean, yeah, there were some issues, but that kind of goes along when Trump, calls Kim Jong-un Rocket Man, and people are like, holy shit, we're going to go to World War III, blah, blah, blah. It's like, look, there's a reason why. I mean, I don't necessarily agree with it, but he's flexing his muscles. These other world leaders knew. They had to know that, look, this dude might be fucking crazy too. You know what I'm saying? So he's flexing his muscles. It's kind of like in the one Zoom call recently that we saw with like Biden and world leaders. And he was the only one in the meeting with a mask on.
Yeah.
And it's like, now most people might look at that and be like, well, he's just doing what he's supposed to do. But you're in a Zoom call. Like that would be like me wearing one right now with you.
Well, and then what?
And it's just a sign of, to the average person, they're probably not going to look at it and they're not going to see anything. But to other egomaniacs that you have to be a world leader, you're looking at that as a sign of weakness.
Well, you also got to think, like, the thing that got me with that Zoom call is when he like won the election, he was like hugging people with no mask on. Like he does things on a daily basis. Like I understand the whole idea of like him wearing a mask for, even if it's for theater.
Right.
But to me, it's like it's like you're on a fucking Zoom call. You're on a Zoom call. Like
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit here and say he hugged the guy without, but he did. He did do those things.
Right.
And so it's the thing that I hate is the fact that he's not wearing that mask because he's scared of COVID. Like that's the whole thing that bothers me is when he went to put that mask on, it was a decision that everybody made that he was going to fucking put a mask on. And there were definitely people there like, he doesn't need a fucking mask, but this is what we want you to do, shit like that. And that's the other thing too. Like, could you imagine fucking 10 people trying to tell Trump to put a fucking mask on? And you could say, well, he's an asshole because he won't listen. But at the end of the day, though, you want a fucking leader, a guy who's like, I ain't putting his fucking mask on, for a Zoom call.
Right. And it's all public relations, because I mean, I would imagine that Biden even knows, like, I don't fucking need a mask on.
That's what I mean. That's the whole.
But it's all public relations. So yeah, man. So there's a lot of interesting things going on there, and I kind of mentioned this book again on the podcast. Everything is fucked. I'm almost finished. So we're going to get into a little reading time with Tommy and Danny.
We started off this thing saying he doesn't read books. Now all of a sudden he's fucking reading books, and like I feel like I'm getting left in the dust.
Well, dude, I don't have, other than my few days I'm busy, you know, the rest of the week, a lot of times, like I'm like, all right, well, what else am I gonna do? And again, I feel like you know, you would think I was paid by this guy, but this book, along with The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, I really suggest it. Especially, listen, if you're not a book person, like, because dude, as I get older, it's really hard for me to concentrate. Like, my head is fucking spinning all over the place. So if you listen to podcasts, just get the audiobook. Like, these are seriously no brainers for like people like you and I, as far as I'm concerned. And especially people that are maybe curious about somebody like Jordan Peterson, who kind of likes what he has to say about, you know, the world. Mark Manson is kind of like the layman's terms version of Jordan Peterson, because Jordan Peterson, I love him to death, and I can usually follow what he's saying, but sometimes he's a little bit above my pay grade when it comes to some words and shit he throws around. Um, but yeah, and the other thing is, you know, when like you would read when you get called in class and you got to read,
Yeah.
and it was so much more like you feel like, oh shit, like I'm gonna fuck this up.
Yeah.
That's
I
kind
just
of how I
watched the
feel like.
stand-up comedy thing on that. The guy
Oh,
was
really?
the guy was like, "What kind of fucking remember how much pressure that was?" Then you get up and you start trying to read it, and you fucking the minute you fucking mumble, your fucking buddies, he can't read, he can't read. And then the
Yeah.
guy was saying that how the teacher would give that pressure, like, take your time. And he's like, don't fucking tell me to take my time. Now you just fucking busted me up in front of everybody.
Now it's even worse.
Yeah.
But the crazy thing is that, like, when I'm reading a book, like in my mind, I'm breezing through it. I'm reading it and I sound like fucking Morgan Freeman. I sound great in my mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like now, like on a podcast, I'm going to read a little bit and I'm going to be like, so the cat and the hat.
You should read it as Morgan Freeman.
Dude, I wish I could. I wish I could. Because if I could, we'd have a lot more listeners. But yeah, so it's a quick 4 pages. So sit back, relax, bear with us, because there's going to be a little bit that we can discuss on this. Like, I think it'll be interesting for Danny to hear. I think it'll be interesting for the people that pay attention to us to hear. I really enjoyed it. So here we are. Pain is the universal I'm already fucking up, dude.
Oh, great.
This is gonna be bad, brother. All right, pain is the universal constant. One by one, the researchers shuttled the subjects down a hall and into a small room. Inside was a single beige computer console with a black screen and 2 buttons and nothing else. The instructions were simple. Sit, stare at the screen, and if a blue dot flashes on it, press the button that reads blue. If a purple dot flashes on the screen, press the button that reads not blue. Sounds easy, right? Well, each subject had to look at thousands of dots. Yes, 1,000. When a subject was finished, the researcher brought in another subject and repeated the process. Beige console, black screen, 1,000 dots. Next. This went on with hundreds of subjects at multiple universities. Were these psychologists researching a new form of psychological torture? Was this an experiment into the limitations of human boredom? No. Actually, the scope of the study was matched only by its inanity. It was a study with seismic implications because more than any other academic study in recent history, it explains much of what we're seeing happening in the world today. The psychologists were researching something they would call prevalence-induced concept change. But because that's an absolutely awful name, for our purposes, I will refer to their discovery as the blue dot effect. Here's the deal with the dots. Most of them were blue. Some of them were purple. Some of them were a shade in between blue and purple. The researchers discovered that when they showed mostly blue dots, everyone was pretty accurate in determining which dots were blue and which ones were not. But as soon as the researchers started limiting the number of blue dots and showing more shades of purple, the subjects began to mistake purple dots for blue. It seemed that their eyes distorted the colors and continued to seek a certain number of blue dots, no matter how many were actually shown. Okay, big deal, right? People missee stuff all the time. And besides, when you're staring at dots for hours on end, you might start to go cross-eyed and see all sorts of weird shit. Kind of like what you're probably thinking as I'm reading right now. But back to it. But the blue dots weren't the point. They were merely a way to measure how humans warp their perceptions to fit their expectations. Once the researchers had enough data on blue dots to put their lab assistants into a coma, they moved on to more important perceptions. For example, next, the researchers showed the subjects pictures of faces that were some degree of threatening, friendly, or neutral. Initially, they showed them a large number of threatening faces, but as the experiment went on, as with the blue dots, they showed fewer and fewer, and the same effect occurred. The fewer threatening faces subjects were shown, the more subjects began to misread friendly and neutral faces as being threatening. In the same way, the human mind seemed to have a preset number of blue dots and is expected to see, it also had a preset number of threatening faces it expected to see. Then the researchers went even further because fuck it, why not? It's one thing to see threats where there are none, but what about moral judgments? What about believing there's more evil in the world than there actually is? This time, the researchers had the subjects read job proposals. Some of these proposals were unethical, involving some shady shit. Some proposals were innocuous and fine. Others were some gradation in between. Once again, the researchers began by showing a mix of ethical and unethical proposals, and the subjects were told to keep an eye out for unethical proposals. Then, slowly, the researchers exposed people to fewer and fewer unethical proposals. As they did, the blue dot effect kicked in. People began to interpret completely ethical proposals as being unethical, rather than noticing the more proposals were showing up on the ethical side of the fence. People's minds moved the fence into maintain the perception that a certain number of proposals and requests were unethical. Basically, they redefined what was unethical without being consciously aware of doing so. As the researchers noted, the bias has incredibly upsetting implications for, well, pretty much everything. Governmental committees designed to oversee regulations, when provided with a dearth of infractions, may start to perceive infractions where there are none. Task forces designed to check unethical practices within organizations will, when deprived of bad guys to accuse of wrongdoing, begin imagining bad guys where there are none. The blue dot effect suggests that essentially, the more we look for threats, the more we will see them, regardless of how safe or comfortable our environment actually is. And we see this playing out in the world today. It is used. It used to be. It used to be that being the victim of violence meant somebody had physically harmed you. Today, many people have begun to use the word violence to describe words that made them feel uncomfortable, or even just the presence of a person they disliked. Trauma used Trauma used to mean specifically an experience to serve that the victim could not continue to function. Today, an unpleasant social encounter or a few offensive words are considered trauma and necessitate safe spaces. Genocide used to mean physical mass murder of a certain ethnic or religious group. Today, the term white genocide is employed by some to lament the fact that the local diner now lists some of the menu items in Spanish. This is the blue dot effect. The better things get, the more we perceive threats where there are none, and the more upset we become. And it is the heart of the paradox of progress. In the 19th century, Emil Durkheim, which I have no idea if I pronounced that right or not, but the founder of sociology and an early pioneer of social science, ran a thought experiment in one of his books. What if there were no crime? What if there emerged a society where everyone was perfectly respectful and nonviolent and everyone was equal? What if no one lied or hurt each other? What if corruption did not exist? What would happen? Would conflict cease? Would stress evaporate? Would everyone frolic in the fields, picking daisies and singing hallelujah? Chorus from Handel's Messiah. Durkheim said no, that in fact the opposite would happen. He suggested that the more comfortable and ethical a society became, the more that small indiscretions would become magnifying in our minds. If everyone stopped killing each other, we wouldn't necessarily feel good about it. We just equally get upset about the minor stuff. Developmental psychology has long argued something similar. that protecting people from problems or adversity doesn't make them happier or more secure. It makes them more easily insecure. A young person who has been sheltered from dealing with any challenges or injustices growing up will come to find the slightest inconveniences of adult life intolerable and will have this childish public meltdown to prove it. What we find then is that our emotional reaction to our problems are not defined by the size of the problem. Rather, our minds simply amplify or minimize our problems to fit the degree of stress we expect to experience. Material progress and security do not necessarily relax us or make it easier to hope for the future. On the contrary, it appears that perhaps by removing healthy adversity and challenge, people struggle even more. The more they become more selfish and more childish. They fail to develop and mature out of adolescence. They remain further removed from any virtue. They see mountains where there are molehills, and they scream at each other as though the world were one endless stream of spilled milk. Now, I don't know if we still have all the listeners after that, but I read that and I thought it was extremely significant as to what we're seeing in the world today.
Well, it is. I agree. I agree 100%.
What
It's basically like that we're I feel like people are not realizing how good things are, and they're like shooting for this utopian society that in reality the thought of a utopian society is unattainable in terms of what these people want. They want to get rid of these, like you were saying, at one point genocide was genocide. Now it's, just not having enough of a certain you know uh, a certain culture represented in a menu can be referred to as a genocide of sorts.
right. Yeah.
Well, to add to that too, like one thing that I keep, just to add a little extra to it, one thing that it comes to mind for me from when I went to film school, there's a thing called and I had to look this back up while you're doing it, but it's called the Kuleshov effect or something. And it's another interesting thing about film for me was that they used to just film stuff, like put a camera there and just film it. Well, the idea of, how like you can shoot a movie and you can have no dialogue, but just the way characters are looking at each other suggests a thought, So the idea that you could suggest something through images was a new concept in movie making at one point. But there was a group that did a study on it. And what they did was they took a guy who they just took a picture of a guy, and it was one picture, and each group they put the picture of the guy next to the image, and if it was, say, an image of food, or if it was an image of poor kids, or if it was an image of somebody picking flowers, each different group would be sitting there saying how this guy is the greatest actor. In just one picture, he showed you that he's hungry, or he showed you that he's so sad for these poor kids, or that he's so happy because this woman's picking him flowers. And it just shows you how, you know, I think it has a little bit to do with what you're saying, because in the sense of, when there's really nothing there, we're going to find something, you know,
Yeah.
you're going to be looking, and really that guy has no thought in his mind. But if you're being told you got to put a thought in this man's mind, you're going to you're going to sit there and come up with it. And in this case, they literally, like, the thing that was so funny about this was that people actually started to actually commend the power of this guy's acting in his eyes, and they were like, we just took a picture of a guy. you know
Yeah.
so I mean, I feel like that correlates in some way with what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean everything is perception versus reality. And you hear a lot of people talk about my truth, like speak your truth. And it's like, okay, that's great, but just because you experienced one thing as an individual doesn't mean that the rest of the world is going to have the same experience. It's kind of like, a lot of the critical race theory type stuff. You see, well, we've talked about it a little bit on the podcast, but there's one guy that I follow, and he's a teacher in California, and he's constantly trying to have discussions with people about the theories of critical race theory and how it helps, because he doesn't agree with it. So I just saw a video today of him kind of having a little bit of a debate with a black man who's a teacher, and he is an advocate for it. And they're having this discussion, and the other teacher, he didn't articulate how he thought that critical race theory was good. He just basically questioned the other teacher because he was white, and how he could he's not seeing it because he's white. And I saw this one girl that I follow on Instagram, beautiful black girl. She's a nurse, and she's posting something about being black, and something about being black, like they don't promote you, they just make you work harder. And while that may be true in her situation, I also was seeing somebody that was a nurse that was having the same issues, and she wasn't black. She was struggling to get promoted. She was trying, and it wasn't happening. So there could be a few things here at play. It could be that maybe it's that you're a woman. Maybe you're not working as hard as you think you are. Maybe you're not as qualified as you think you are. And that's one thing that some people have a hard time accepting. You know what I'm saying? Like, most people won't admit their flaws. Some people may not even recognize their flaws. You know what I mean? So while racism for that one black nurse may exist where she's at, it doesn't mean that it's a reality everywhere.
Well, I also,
and even if that's your perception, it may not even be the case. If that's your perception, then ultimately you're going to see it everywhere, right?
well, yeah, well, here's the thing that I think is kind of, and I've definitely said this on here before, where when you are able to go to work, and you, like, as a white straight male, okay, I have all those, like, in other words, we, like, everyone that goes to work, talk to anybody that works, okay? Their boss is a dick. They're not getting their just deserve. Some people might be very happy in what they do, but I feel like, these are common problems, or else they wouldn't be. Whenever you see something represented in, like, film or whatever, every movie is about a guy who's not getting his just deserve, and there is something in the way. But the thing that I think sucks is that certain people are kind of given this out. Like, in other words, I go to work and I just have to accept that that's my reality. Other people go to work and they like, in other words, and then I'm forced to do what you said, which is, maybe I'm fucking not that good, maybe I'm not better than this other person. Why is it that this other person seems to be moving fastly up the ladder than me? If I can't just pinpoint some thing that I have no control over, then I feel that there's like an injustice being done, or I need to step up my game. But if you're able to tell yourself that the reason why this isn't happening to you, or the reason why your job sucks, is because of something that is unfair and completely out of your control, and it's because of this society that has been set up where you are like, I feel that all those feelings that person has, everybody has them, but the difference is she gets to separate herself and put race in it, and make it where it's like, no, my shit isn't your shit, because it's happening to me blatantly because of the color of my skin. And I think that that's another divisional tool, because maybe, just maybe these corporations, and maybe bosses, and maybe the wealthy class of people are treating us all like shit, not giving any of us our just deserves, but it keeps you divided because I can't even get my coworker to side with me on an issue because her issue's different. You know what I mean?
Right.
And maybe, like I'm starting to think a lot of stuff that goes on is purposefully done. It's not just a fucking like, oh, what's going on here? It's like somebody is pumping that fucking message in.
Well, yeah, and here's the thing too. I mean, look, not everybody. I mean, this is something we talked about multiple times on the show. Not everybody is meant to be CEO. Like we, if our podcast isn't successful, it's for either we're not good enough, or maybe people don't like me, or maybe people don't like you. I mean, that's not something that I want to admit. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to
Yeah.
admit, like, oh, dude, like I suck at this. You know what I mean? But that's just something that you have to come to a realization that not everybody can become the number one podcaster or in the top 10 podcasting. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, even and because even just because you're bringing the pot up, it's like there are some things that I think could be in the way of us at some point, but I'm not gonna like in other words because I'm really big in the fact that they're censoring people that have these kind of conversations, except for the fact that I don't think we've done anything important enough to be like it ain't like I'm sitting here going, I know that episode should have been better. It's like I feel that that's a hurdle we may touch at some point, but we haven't done anything justifiably to say someone is interfering with it. You know what I mean? I definitely think that when it comes to censorship and stuff, there may be issues where people are like, why aren't I better? There's famous people out there that are actually encountering that, but at the same time, it's like it would be horrendous for me and you to be like, the reason why our podcast sucks is because it's two white guys. And think about what a clutch that would be if me and you went on here every day and we were like, and all we thought in our heads was, we're doing great, we're doing amazing, and I'm not even going to change what I'm doing, and the only reason why I'm not doing better is because it's two white guys. Like,
right, right.
that's a
Like that would,
crutch. You
that
know what
would
I
be, and
mean?
that, and it's there's an ego that's involved there. That's like, and pride. It's just like, I can't even wrap my head around. Like, I have to, and to be honest with you, when I was actually more liberal, I kind of use that as excuses. You know what I mean? And that's something we talked about. Like, I used to use the excuse like, oh, well, fucking rich people, man. Like, this is why, like, the government, blah, blah, blah. Well, I still have my issues with the government and their involvement in everybody's life. But I used to blame, the hugely successful people in the world. And that's why I can't get ahead. And it's so unfair that I don't make X amount of money. But the reality is, like, what am I producing that's so worth it for society that they have to have it?
Yeah. Well,
Yep.
and even it's you have to. I think that those things are real, but and like just like you even said about like racism, like it's real, right? But I feel that the people that are loudest about it, like I mean, I know from my work, it's
Yeah.
like I'll be working with a bunch of ethnic groups, I'll say, or whatever. I don't know, like, because I mean, it might not just be I could be working with a black person, a Hispanic person, or whatever person. And then all of a sudden, when you're in this world where you're working with Hispanic people and everybody's on the same page, you're working with black people, everybody feels equal. And then there's one asshole that shows up and he sucks and he's about to get fired because it's his third time he showed up late and he pulls the fucking race card out, you
Right.
know? And it's like, no, 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 no. But what I have hated, if you want like my personal thoughts on it, and this goes back to that idea of the division too, is I've worked with people of certain races that, where I feel that we're all on the same page, and then some asshole comes in and does that. And I sit down or I see the boss come in to like talk to us about it. And all of a sudden, you see other people have these gripes, and I'm like, like personally, I feel they don't want to let that crutch go. So it's like your boss walks in and they're like, I don't know what's going on, but this guy's saying this. Is any of you guys feeling that? And somebody you work right alongside with that, you and him, I feel like we're one and one. We're the same. If we have any gripe, it's the same gripe. And then that person's like, well, that's how I do feel around here. I feel it's harder for, you know, fill in the blank race to get whatever. And I'm like, well, I don't, I mean, maybe, and then they have the cover now to like, how can you ever put your 2 cents in if even as I'm saying that, I already know what I'd be told if I was arguing it. Well, it's easy. You wouldn't see it because you're white and white people don't see it. It's part of the problem. That's part of the problem. I don't agree with that.
Yeah.
Like how
Right.
could you ever be involved in an argument where it's either you are it or you don't know you're it? you know?
Right.
Oh, so when you start to put your side of the story in, people only there's two of you about to come out. I'm either about to find out this guy's racist or I'm about to find out he doesn't know he's racist. But whatever he's saying doesn't mean anything. There's only two things going to come out of it. And that seems kind of unfair to me.
Yeah, well, and in many ways, like there's no logic behind it. You know what I'm saying? Like you can't come to a solution to a problem if that's what we're just going to throw out there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because like if that's the way you feel, then how do we establish any groundwork for you to not or to be here on time? Like let's just say, you know what I'm
Well,
saying?
and I'm not.
Like
We don't have to stay on what I'm about to say. But you saying solutions and you saying what you just said, it's the one reason why I started. Why I'm kind of like trying to read up a little bit more on this Caitlyn Jenner shit because I felt like that one answer. She's fumbled around a couple other answers, but when they were asking her like about Republican issues and Democrat issues, she was like, "I'm about solutions."
right.
And basically, that's what I actually was kind of like taken back by what you were saying because these are the things that we are getting away from. Like, in other words, it's like, do you want to be behind critical race? Like, we all know critical race theory ain't fucking going to solve any fucking problems for real. Or are you going to be on, this Republican side where it's just attack critical race? So basically, it's like you have critical race theory, and then you have the group of people that are against critical race theory. So you're going to devote your energy to either being against critical race theory or for it, and that's where your energy goes. And I felt like Caitlyn Jenner was saying, I'm just going to like focus on the fucking solution to the problem. And if critical race theory was to be it, then it would be it. But if it's not, let's just hone in on the solution to the problem. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. So if anybody doesn't know, Caitlyn Jenner is now throwing her hat in the ring for governor of California. And I thought it was great. I mean, I don't know whether we mentioned it before, but I
No,
think it's great. I think it's great because listen, I have no idea. I know she's running as a Republican, and that's the only reason why I thought it was great because this is exactly where you're going to see the bumper cars happen with the Democrats. This is exactly where you're going to see the identity politics on a head-on collision because it's already happening. George Takai, whatever that guy's name is, Takei, whatever. From what the hell was he? Was he
Star
named like
Trek.
Star Trek or something? And he's like a gay Asian man, liberal, so he checks all the boxes. And he was like, "Yay, Caitlyn." Back in 2011, like tweeting, like, so proud of you and all this stuff. And now that she came out as a Republican running, he was like, she doesn't represent us. Like, this is what I mean, dude. I just love this because, again, we've talked about when liberals and Democrats and all they work off of all these emotions. And actually, one thing about that other guy that I talked about, that teacher in California, Will Rush, whatever his last name is, he was mentioning Brett Weinstein and his wife. And he was like, there was something that she mentioned that he heard her talk about. And she was like, the Democratic Party used to be for the working class, but now it is the identity class. And the working class encompasses everyone. It encompasses, like, it's included, black, white, male, female, gay, straight. It's all encompassing. The working class. Are you a working class person? But when you break it off, and now, like she said, she's like, they are now the party of identity. Now you're breaking that off all into certain groups, and you have to try to appease them, and they're constantly clashing. And that's why I'm just sitting back and I'm just watching it, and I just love it, because I'm like, this is
Yeah.
ridiculous. This
Well,
is not how we're supposed to. This isn't how we're supposed to function.
well, also what I see said about the Democratic Party, and I totally see it 100%, is, and we've had this conversation on here before, where we're like, but why is Facebook, if they're big business and all these big businesses seem to be Democrat, it doesn't make any sense, right? And so what you're seeing going on is, like, Silicon Valley working class is not working class. You know what I mean? So basically, it's like the guys on the pipeline, the guys doing the construction workers, and they could be guys and girls or whatever, like restaurant business people, restaurant owners, all that kind of stuff. These are people. So in a way, it's like the Democrats are behind, like, Wall Street's behind them, and Facebook and Silicon Valley and Amazon and all that stuff's behind them. And the people that are, like, on the Republican side are like actual physical workers. You know what I mean? Like, in other words, like, Amazon itself and probably all the high ups and all the whatever in Amazon are Democrats, but you don't know what the fucking guys loading the packages are or whatever. And so it just seems to me like we're losing. There's so many things going on at once, and one of the things is transitioning to what actually business means. Like, in the 80s, we understood when people were like, a Republican is this and a Democrat is that. Well, the only business you really had was, like, you had your industry, you were a car manufacturer, you were, this, or you were that. Now it's like, you basically like, our whole economy has shifted to, like, a working class man now might be a guy who sells computers. Like, that's not the same. It's not the, like, they're making everything in China, and the whole department that's over here are like salesmen and advertising guys and whatever, and they're actually all Democrat, you know. So it's like the forgotten worker is the Republican Party now, you know.
Yeah, and with everything that's going on in the world, it's as far as inflation and the economy, and this is something that we talked about. I think the number one thing for us to survive, especially in particular this country, is our economy. I mean, all this other stuff, the racism, sexism, transphobia, all this stuff, by focusing all that, we're distracted from the fact that every single one a person in those groups needs a fucking job, and they
Yeah.
need a good job. You know what I mean? And that's why when we talk about certain things, and when topics come up, and people want to address it, my mind just gets lost, because I'm like, this isn't even relevant. You know what I'm saying? Because it's kind of like how in the passage that I talked about, we're we're programmed to just find things wrong. You know what I mean? Like, with the blue dot effect, like I said, it later, like they talk about, even on a sunny day, us as humans will pick out the cloud that passes by. You know what I mean? Like, it's just it's just human instincts. And this is how, like, the psychological aspect of all this that people don't really take into consideration. I feel like they just want to be like, oh, trans people, like, we have to worry about them, and we have to take care of them. Well, yes, I agree. Like, because it's a human being, it's another person. So, like, yeah, absolutely. But, like, making everything about that issue and pushing that to the forefront, like, I'm like, you just kind of losing me here, because everybody's struggling with
Yeah.
certain things. And
Well, and
again, and like I said, again, just going back to it, there are psychological things at play here. Like when things are going well, people will find things to pinpoint on. And that's kind of like, this one girl that I follow. She's half Jewish, half Mexican, and she came over to this country from Mexico. Um, and she posted the video of the missiles flying over and in the sky. Like I said, they're just getting shot out of the sky. And it makes me laugh because I'm like, we're over here arguing and be offended by fucking pronouns. And
Yeah.
there's literally people looking out their window and seeing missiles blown up in the air. And that's why, like, when people think like, oh, you're so insensitive, I'm like, no, I don't want to see anybody hurt, whether you're black, white, straight, gay, whatever. I don't want to see anybody hurt. But like some of the things that we focus on here are so minuscule compared to what could actually be going on. And because we're not focusing on that, because we're focusing on all these issues, I think it becomes more likely that there's going to be a time where you're looking out your window and you're seeing fucking missiles being shot over the fucking sky because
Dude, I was
we're
thinking about,
fucking, because we're crumbling, because we're
well,
worried about fucking pronouns and just ridiculous things here.
well, I'm 100%. I mean, listen, I don't know how it would happen, and I'm not trying to say it's even going to happen, but with all the stuff I see going on, I feel like we're going to war with somebody at some point. Okay. And it's not going to be the war that we're used to, where it's just like us in a different country with that nobody cares about. And then we're funding some army and we're sending troops and some other place like China or Russia. I'm talking about we're going to war with Russia or something soon, you know? And even like without getting into the gas stuff and all, this is where I had this thought where I'm like, I don't know what happened with this hack or whatever, but the thing is after the hack with the pipeline, the kind of rumble in society that how every little thing like that becomes, one side saying, "Oh, well, like I knew it was going to happen right away." Once I heard that they said Russia did it, I really feel like our government is saying Russia did it, and they don't really know fully who did it, or there's other people they're not bringing in because they know that once saying that, immediately the talking point from the left is like, "Oh, well, fucking," like it kind of it in some way they're implicating like as if Trump was in with the Russians and he still kind of is. And now Trump's out of office, still being a disruptor, and Russia in some way is helping him be a disruptor. But what I started to think is like somebody's fucking with us. Like the hack on the solar winds, this hack, fucking with our election. Like I'm not even talking about like giving votes. I'm talking about just fucking with our election, fucking with us on Facebook. These people, they're right now, we are this like we are ripe for like countries to just do these little fucking things that they can do to us from without ever you know putting a fucking a jet in the air or firing a missile at us. They can just create some type of story and leak it, and next thing so I really feel like we're so vulnerable right now that these other countries like are loving it and they're just prolonging it and they're poking us and poking us and poking us. And I feel like maybe at one point it'll be like, are they trying to weaken us for a reason, or are they just trying to fuck with us because they enjoy it and it still helps them? But I think we are getting into a place now where it's beyond fucking with us. Like it's beyond like they've weakened us. And Asia, I mean, and China and Russia and Iran seem to be united in like fucking with us. So I'm a little curious about where we can end up at some point, you know?
Yeah. And it's all propaganda that they're using against us. And it's kind of like how we talked about I mentioned on the podcast about, well, we had Jay on, and that's how I King Poe, how he met on this guy's page, 100 Days of Summer, which is it's just kind of weird because I'll get to the point. But that guy, 100 Days of Summer, who I follow on Instagram, he showed the video of this guy Edward Bernays and how he was able to use propaganda and marketing. He was the nephew of Sigmund Freud, and how he was able to tie Sigmund Freud's, his uncle's study of psychology and all that into marketing and propaganda. And it's strange because after I saw that, I never heard of him. After I saw that, I'm reading this book. In this book, they talk about him and they talk about how he was able to, manipulate people. And I just heard his name dropped again on another podcast, and I forget, somebody was talking about him. So it's just crazy that within the past couple weeks, I just keep hearing about this guy.
Well, wait, how about this? And how about when I sent you the thing that showed that that guy's fucking nephew or great nephew or whatever is the fucking founder of Netflix.
Yeah.
And how many times, that thing that I've said to you about Netflix where I'm like, I don't get it though. Like, I feel like, remember when we had them conversations where I'm like, it seems to me like they're putting shit up there and it's not shit that people want. And when you're looking at that front page, you're literally saying to yourself, is the, like, when I look at the what's popular on Netflix or what the new things are on Netflix, I'm saying to myself, like, in my brain when I think of regular business, I'm like, I guess the world is moving at a pace and maybe I'm the old man, like, what is this, blah 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 blah. But I also have this feeling like they're just spending money. It doesn't make any sense. And I've gotten big back into just listening to comedy stuff and whatever. And all the comedians are talking about Netflix right now, where they're like, dude, I don't need. They literally just talked about how the Netflix just bought like 40 uh stand-up comedians acts, and they're all like diverse acts. It's like, if you go on Netflix, you look up like the latest stand-up, it'll be like 5 Indians, 2 black guys. There'll be like Jim Gaffigan or like a regular, like a fucking regular cut of the mill, like fucking woke white guy. But what they were saying was, basically at this point they don't even want to do a Netflix special because they're like, I don't even think people see it. He's like, I think they just buy it. So I guess what I'm saying is, I'm personally, as a consumer, having a thought like, how is this making sense? Because if I'm seeing all these diverse woke comedians, I'm thinking in my head, this is what the country wants, and I'm just like fucking sitting on the outside of it, disgruntled. But then when you look at comedians saying, I don't even know what Netflix is doing. They're just buying up shit. They're not making any money. And, it's not even worth me doing the special because I'm not even sure anybody's going to see it. And they're not buying stuff they like. To see, for me, I put those two pieces of information together and I say, if the people that are producing content don't understand what Netflix's method is, and I don't know what it is, and the co-founder of Netflix happens to be related to one of the godfathers of propaganda, I mean, you got to start putting some fucking 2 cents in somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, again, as far as TV, like, dude, I was like glued, like watching new movies, all this stuff. And a lot of things, like, I just can't even get into anymore. Like, I just see all these different narratives being pushed. And there's a part of me that's like, okay, like, I get it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I understand, like, because I do understand to an extent why we want to see, like, why we want to go about making people feel included. The problem is that a lot of times, like, they want to make people feel included, but they also want to silence people for having any kind of opposing views on, like, it's not like you impose or oppose people being included, but like certain things that they say and certain point of views, you're like, well, that doesn't make sense. Or
Well,
like certain jokes, you're like, well, that's offensive to me.
yeah, that's
And
it.
I'm like, so I don't know, like, should I feel like, okay, I could just be the brunt of jokes? Like,
Well,
and
I'm
I understand, and I understand even in historically, there a lot in women were made fun of and looked down upon. Minorities were the brunts of jokes and things like that. So I get it, but I also look at it like, well, if we're moving forward,
Exactly.
everything, then it's kind of like, oh, well, because you kicked me before, now we're going to kick back. And it's like, but
Well,
there shouldn't be any kicking involved at all.
well, the difference before was that there was ignorance and
Right.
kicking back was allowed. Like when I say was allowed, what I mean is there were only two sides of it, right? There was people that were ignorant, and then there were people that were like, "Hey, maybe that's not right." Right? Now I feel like there's three sides. There's people that are ignorant, there's people that are like, "Hey, maybe that's not right," and there's people that are like, "Yeah, you deserve it." I don't remember that being allowed. And perfect example of what you're talking about is Dave Chappelle's opening monologue on SNL, the last one he did. I was watching it and I started to feel like, yo, this is kind of fucked up and whatever. And it was funny to me because I went in and one of my liberal friends at work was like, I tried to watch that, but I thought it was like somebody who was very woke liberal like felt offended by it, which I thought was kind of interesting because I thought I was
Right.
completely alone.
Right.
But Dave Chappelle literally says in it, he makes fun of white people for like 5 minutes, and then he turns around and he goes, and if you feel like you got a target on you, like no, he goes, if you feel like he goes, I'm sorry, white people, whatever he's like, but if you feel like you got a target on your back or something, something. I don't remember exactly what he said, but he literally turns and looks at the camera and he's like, I'm happy that you do, and it's about time. So in other words, he made that would like in other words, you can't like when people made black jokes or whatever, it was like that guy's maybe racist. I don't know. But like nobody was ever turning around and saying, and I can't, it's a hard thing to explain because we're talking about progression of time. But to what I felt and exactly what you were just stating there is like, well, we're supposed to be in this environment where we're talking about unity and wokeness and inclusion, but yet you can turn around and talk about revenge. Like I don't want to get into a revenge state. You know what I mean? Like, you're not supposed like it's like you're aware. It's like it's very different when you're aware that you're attacking someone and you're aware that it's wrong, and then you're looking in the camera and saying, and I don't care because you deserve it now. It's different.
Yeah, it's weird. And even like, in the sports world, there were some new things happening. Tim Tebow, which I don't know, you know who Tim
I
Tebow
seen
is, right?
somebody, yeah. I seen somebody post something about them. I thought he was going to the fucking Eagles or something.
No, so Tim Tebow signed a contract with the Jacksonville Jaguars as a tight end. Now Tim Tebow was a quarterback his whole career, as far as I know. In college, he was a quarterback. He was drafted into the league as a quarterback. He's been out of the league for several years. I think Tim Tebow's like 30. He tried in baseball. I don't even know what else, but he got his it was so the coach, and I'm drawing a blank on his name, but his coach, I think, was his college coach. So I think that's the only reason why he's bringing him on. Now, it doesn't make any sense to me really at all because he's bringing him on as a tight end. The dude, unless I'm completely unaware of him ever playing tight end, it just doesn't make sense, especially for a guy that's been out of the league for several years. So there was a linebacker, something Bush, on the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he was like, man, I can't wait to play Jacksonville because they still blackballing Kaepernick, but they're going to allow Tim Tebow in.
Who's
So,
blackballing Kaepernick?
but well, even if you think that Kaepernick's being blackballed, and listen, maybe there is some of that. I don't know. Maybe there is some of it. I have no idea. The two have nothing to do with one another. But now this guy's basically coming out and putting a target on Tim Tebow's back because now he's coming back in the league and Kaepernick isn't. Well, he didn't do anything. Look, you can argue all day about if Kaepernick was right or wrong. I don't agree with what he did. And I said this from the get-go, like I believe in his right to do what he did, but I think what he did causes way more division than it does good. Now, of course, in hindsight, people might be like, oh, see, he brought awareness, and no, it is good. I don't know. I'm not going to argue with it. I don't think it is. But Tim Tebow didn't do anything. Tim Tebow wasn't good. Just like Kaepernick, kind of his game, everything on his game fell off. He was very good, and then he wasn't, which also contributed to the fact that he was out of the league. It's not like we're talking about Peyton Manning or Tom Brady, who did something and was still at the top of his game, was an incredible quarterback. That was not Kaepernick's situation. It's not the situation in Tim Tebow, but it's obviously his college coach, his former college coach. He's got a relationship with the guy. He's probably bringing him on for moral support because the guy's like this big, huge Christian. I mean, I've never heard anything bad about Tim Tebow, really. Like for all intents and purposes, he's a good person. So I'm sure he also wants to integrate that into the team itself, just having good people on the team. So I don't know, but I just was like, and this is what I mean, kind of going back to the conversation, is like, you kind of like put targets and you kind of like send mixed signals in things. And I'm like, it doesn't really make sense.
Well, I also seen somebody in the article that I seen, it was posted under like the Eagles page, like the fans of the Eagles page or some shit. And it was actually a a totally different jab at him. Like I didn't read the article, but I read like the comments in the headline of the article. And the headline of the article had something to do with his religion, like Tebow being so religious. And then all the discussion underneath was like, oh, you see how different the treatment is. Like Kaepernick can't talk about whatever, but Tebow can talk about God all the time or whatever. And they were somehow making that a target, out of it. But what I'll say as somebody one thing that I have learned about sports that I thought was interesting, and it was like with Ray Lewis being on the Ravens, when people would talk about, and Ed Reed, some people were like, why? Well, I mean, Ray Lewis probably still could have kept playing, but some people were saying like, a lot of people don't understand that having Ray Lewis on your team, whether he's at his prime or not, is so important to like somebody with his experience and how he like talks to the new guys and how he unifies the team. And so if you look at the Tebow situation compared to the Kaepernick and you take in what I've learned about how important a veteran is, like, you look at it with McNabb throwing up at the fucking Super Bowl. It's like Tom Brady, if McNabb was the better quarterback that year and Tom Brady, I'm just making up a scenario. I know that wasn't how it went, but a Tom Brady doesn't throw up. Like a Tom Brady isn't nervous to be there. So just using how like veterans actually come into play more in the playoffs or in big games or whatever. And then you take a guy like Kaepernick. So if you're creating a team, in Kaepernick's case, you're putting a guy who may not be really that great at the time, and your choice is that you're going to take a guy on, and he's going to be the leader because his position is quarterback, and he's the leader of the team, and he's known for causing divisiveness. But then a guy like Tebow, he's not coming on as a quarterback, so therefore he's not like he's taking a fucking a peg down. He's coming in as a tight end. We don't even know if he's going to be important. He might not even play, but even if he is, every team has like 4 tight ends and most of them are just blockers. So I would say, just like you said, Tebow is probably coming on just for moral fucking support. But the fact that people will start arguing about like Tebow coming back onto a team, I don't even understand it. It's fucking like these conversations, just like when Brady won the Super Bowl, like somehow implying that was fucking white nationalism or something. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, yeah, and I mean, just like you pointed out, even the fact that he's a tight end as opposed to a quarterback. Like, if you bring Colin Kaepernick on your team, he's probably going to be a backup, right? Depending on, in most cases. I mean, quarterback is Tim Tebow has a better chance of picking up being a tight end than Colin Kaepernick has of coming back in the league and being a very, very good quarterback.
Yeah.
He can maybe be a serviceable backup, But the fact that he is Colin Kaepernick, you bring him on your team as a backup, and it's going to cause
All you're doing is bringing conversation. If anything,
right.
I'm not going to sit here and say controversy. Like, I'm not saying like you can't hire him because he's going to cause, but like that's something. The thing is
it's
you
going to
got
be
to
a
think.
distraction.
You're going to have fucking press like around you 24/7 because you're backup fucking quarterback.
Right. It's going to be a distraction. And again, it's not about it's not about controversy, so to speak. It's just the fact that once your quarterback doesn't play good, then especially if you have a white quarterback that's not playing good,
you're dead. You're dead.
Oh, they're gonna spin that into like it's gonna. So it's like there's.
Can you imagine a conversation if there was like a mediocre white, like Andy Dalton is the fucking starter, and he has a bad week?
It's going to be like it just would be absolute. It would just be nonsense.
Yeah.
And again, this is not a guy like when Mike Vick came back, let's say, to the Eagles. You know what I mean? Even that caused some issues with McNabb because people were like, "Yo, bring Vick in," and Vick actually played good. Vic's problem wasn't that he couldn't play. It was Vic's. Well, obviously, he got an illegal issues. You know what I mean? Like Kaepernick even wasn't that good.
Forget even here, even to more support the argument. So at some point, the argument became: should Vic play? Like, should Vic be the starter over McNabb or whatever? But let's go even back to when they just took him on. Like, there was controversy beyond controversy, just taking the guy on, and. It all like when we talk about Tebow, I mean, I just watched the Aaron Hernandez documentary not too long ago. I watched it a couple of times. I think it's a fucking great documentary. But Tebow and Hernandez played at the same school together, the same college. And Hernandez was like, just to show you how important someone like Tim Tebow is. It was like they assigned Aaron Rodgers like to Tim Tebow, like, hey, you need to take care of this guy. And Tebow like still cries about the Aaron Hernandez situation because he feels like maybe if he was more involved or something like he was in college, he could have helped him or something. And so I would say that the college coach had already like if the college coach thought so much of Tebow to say, hey man, and assign him to people to like help them and shit.
Yeah.
I mean, it would only make sense later on. You got Tim Tebow's like, look, I'm coming back. You're trying to fill a slot. I'm sure Tebow had to earn the fucking slot too. And, you see him as just a positive to your fucking team. And listen, I don't care about Kaepernick. I don't care if that's what makes me so mad. I don't care if he plays football. If he's fucking good, I don't care what he does. I think that I personally think that Kaepernick is more successful as an activist, and that's why he's not playing football, honestly.
Oh, yeah. There's no doubt in my mind. He's making more money now doing what he's doing than he would in the NFL probably.
Yeah. Because if there was no controversy about Kaepernick, his race or his support for BLM or whatever, he would be a forgotten fucking second string, third string gone. He'd be like RG3. Like, oh, he's playing for this team now as a third string? Oh, I thought he was a fucking Heisman Trophy winner.
It all ties back into Edward Bernays and propaganda and how it's hijacked by, companies and they seem woke and it's not real. It's like now did you just see that something what award show is not being aired now?
The Golden Globes.
The Golden Globes for lack of
or
diversity.
Is it the Grand? I think it's the Golden Globes. I'm not sure.
For lack of diversity, they're not airing it. And I'm like, well, I could care less. I could care less because I'm like, I didn't watch what did they just have on the Oscars? Something tanked. Something the
Oscars. I think it was the Oscars and it tanked. They got like 11 million as opposed to like the 20 some million when they already tanked, as opposed to say 10 years ago when it was like 40 some million.
Yeah. And again, you know, you have this is what we talk about, propaganda and narratives that are being pushed. Look, include I can't even say the word. Being include God, what damn, I'm
Inclusive.
like inclusivity. I don't know. I'm fucking drawing a blank. I can't fucking pronounce that word. Tongue twister. It's not a bad thing. But what bothers me is when I see like a Hollywood celebrity up there that, for all intents and purposes, for most people, say this person's a horrible person. And they're up there preaching to me about how we need to be more inclusive and how we need to feed the hungry and all these bullshit things. Funny thing is I actually matched with this girl like 2 weeks ago, whatever. Um, and she was like love theater and all that. And I was like, oh, cool. Like I was involved in theater. She worked in Hollywood for, I think, Disney for 5 years. And she's like, I left. She's like, I couldn't deal with it anymore. She was like, the people, and I was like, well, wait, why did you leave? So I said, because you used to work for them. And she replied, she was like, I just couldn't deal with the hypocrisy anymore. And she was like, there was just a really lot of fake people that you meet and a lot of like not nice people. And these Hollywood, like that's the propaganda. They're the spearheads. You know what I mean? They're the ones who get pushed out front and center to tell us to be inclusive, to tell us to be better people. And they're horrible individuals. You know what I mean? And what's crazy to me is that there's so many people that buy into this. And I'm like, they're pieces of shit. And I'm not saying
Yeah.
all of them, because I'm not saying, you know, I'm sure that there's plenty of really good people in Hollywood, but I think it's probably in general, it's just polluted and corrupt overall. So they just kind of like, it's kind of like I was watching, I forget what I was watching, but I was like, I loved acting. Like I really, really, and I miss it. But like, let's say I was that good and I could go to Hollywood and do the interviews and all. Like, I don't know, like to have a publicist to tell me what to say and to tell me the things that I had, like, this is what you have to say. This is, you know, and you have to act a certain way. I feel like that would eat me alive. Like,
Well,
I just don't know how I could live with that personally. Like,
well, here's
it would be
I,
tough.
I've recently pondered all of what you're saying, and what I've come to realize from what and when I say, you know, I've recently thought about it, not like as if I was, you know, thinking about doing it or something. This is why I love listening to these comedians and shit, right? Because they talk about Hollywood. They talk about, because they're on podcast and they talk about how it's a step away. So recently, I'll give the guy a plug. I became fucking super infatuated with Theo Von. Okay.
Right.
And one of the reasons why is because he talks about having a failed career, but now doing his own thing and everybody loves him. And now he's blowing up, right?
Right.
And one of the things he talks about is the process of like how he came out to Hollywood and how depressed he got because he thought like, all right, I'm going to go here, and then he instantly felt like unwanted by the little fucking class of Hollywood people, right? So see how when we imagine, like when I said when you just said, I don't know how I'd feel like if I became famous and I had a publicist like tell me what to do and shit, right? Well, what you have to remember, this is what makes Hollywood such a cult. Like you wouldn't be there. That's the whole thing that people say about Hollywood. When, you know, as you listen to all these little bits of information, what I've put together is basically, it's like, you know, the little things like Dave Chappelle always talks about, like forcing them to wear a dress or some shit. You ever hear that? They always try to put a black person in a dress and stuff like that. I believe all that little shit to be true, because what they do is they can make anyone famous. There's 10 fucking Brad Pitts outside the door, but
Right.
they want the one that's going to put on the fucking chick's dress. You know what I mean? So when you said like, it ain't like one day you're Tommy and the next day they're like, don't say that. The only way Tommy becomes famous is they're constantly grooming you. And if you're somebody who's like, fuck you, I'll do what I want, yeah, you're not getting the next fucking cast. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
So that's the scary part about Hollywood, is that basically, and it's how I can believe, you know, I'm not going to try and jumble them all together, but for me, I take information from all these little things and I try and imagine it being put together, you know? And so when you have people talking about like all the child molestation that goes on, all the sexism that, like all the Harvey Weinsteinism, all the whatever, it seems to me like the only people that make it to the top are the ones who have subjected themselves to situations where they've proven that they're submissive and willing to do whatever they have to do. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so what's a little different now with people having access to say podcasts or YouTube or whatever, if you look at, you know, how separate it is. See, Hollywood used to be a place where it was like, I get to pick and choose. Like, in other words, Harvey Weinstein was so powerful because if you didn't fuck Harvey Weinstein, you may not work again in Hollywood, you know?
Yeah.
But if you become a famous YouTube celebrity for being crazy, nobody can fucking, now they can't stop you. Nobody can stop your video from getting viral views, which is another reason why I don't like censorship, because I see it as a way for Hollywood to control stuff too. Like if YouTube becomes a place where it's like Hollywood, where it's like, all right, we're going to start suppressing videos unless they do as we say. It's kind of the same thing. It's that Hollywood elitism of we get to decide, you know, who is who. Whereas 10 years ago, YouTube was like, if the shit was funny, a million people are going to share it. And that's going to be the end of the story.
Oh yeah.
So, so, you know, what I think is kind of fucking, you know, cool. Like the thing I'm trying to put together now is when we're talking about Hollywood, what I do think is funny, just like you said, all those people are disgusting, but yet they're the elites in Hollywood. Well, the ones that are on Netflix and shit are the ones that all are doing what they're told. They're doing the right things on Instagram. They're doing whatever. But when you look at actual like Instagram and you get to see the people that are just famous for being crazy Instagrammers or whatever, they're all people fucking doing shit that's totally against the wokeism. You're making fun of some dude's fucking dirty Jordans. You're sucker punching a guy somewhere. Like everything you're doing is totally against. You know what I mean? Like you gotta care, you gotta whatever. But the viral video is the fucking dude being beat in the middle of the street for fucking because he was wearing a corny outfit, you know, or whatever. And it's just funny to me that it's like you get to see like Hollywood controlled fame and just like what people are actually fucking entertained by. And it shows that even people, like if you're a woke person and you care about everyone, but you follow fucking World Star on Instagram and they got 38 million fucking followers, like you're a piece of shit. You know, well, not really. I mean, because I love the shit too, but I'm not sitting here telling everybody else that it's fucking horrifying.
Yeah, I mean, and a perfect example of this recent story that I just heard was Chrissy Teigen. Chrissy Teigen has been like always outspoken politically, and you know her tweets and bashing Trump and all these things. You know, her living on her high horse. So she came under fire recently, but Candace Owens kind of brought something to people's attention about back in like 2011, I'll say. She made some tweets and apparently she was inboxing somebody. This girl, Courtney Stodden, I forget. I think it's Stodden. She's not really a big actress. Like she kind of made headlines because she was 16 at the time and she married this like 50-year-old dude. The dude was an actor, but he was like a bit actor, not like a really well famous, but
Oh,
it
I
was
know
on like
exactly who it is. It's the dude from Green Mile, and he was fucking some young
yes,
girl. Yes.
yes,
And they got real weird. They were like a weird couple. He even got more famous than he was for it.
yeah. So again, at the time she was 16. Now
The
I think
mom,
her
the mom
parents
organized it for him.
Yeah, like so the parents signed off on it, and the dude at the time was like 50. They got married. So she kind of became famous for that. And she I think she was in like a couple like little starring roles in movies, whatever. But Chrissy Teigen basically told her to commit suicide.
Oh,
Tweeted that you should commit suicide. And this girl said that she has inboxes of Chrissy Teigen making threats. And I'm like, okay, this girl was 16 years old and you're going to criticize and you're making threats to her, telling her that that she should die. She should commit suicide. And you're going to criticize somebody for voting for Trump? Okay. And
I could,
you're gonna get fame for that. They're gonna love you for it. It just doesn't even make sense.
I,
Like you're just not a great. And so now, so Candace Owens put it on Instagram yesterday, and she was like, she's crazy, she's insane, blah blah blah. She blocks people that come at her, politically. Um, and now apparently Chrissy Teigen has released like an apology or whatever. But it's like, dude, look, here's the other thing of that I don't really know how real the threats were. You know what I'm saying? Like I feel like that's one thing that sometimes it's a slippery slope because like although I don't agree with it, and I think Chrissy Teigen is an absolute fucking hypocrite. I also know back in 2011 with social media, we do say things. I know that if you look up shit that I said, I'm sure I made really insensitive jokes. Uh, I've said mean things. You know what I mean? At the time, you just think it's funny. Like you're young, like you think it's funny. You're doing it to get some likes. Nowhere near anything like Chrissy Teigen. So I mean, I'm kind of conflicted with the story because it's like there's a part of me that wants to believe that she was probably not 100% serious. But at the same time, you are a grown woman and saying this to a 16-year-old. So that's kind of like a little off.
well, to, let's be real honest. I can sit here and go right along with what you're saying, especially if we're just trying to be fair as possible.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I've never inboxed even a celebrity and said, kill yourself or anything remotely close to
Right.
it. That's
Right.
definitely a bigger step, especially I don't know much about Chrissy Teigen. I don't know where she was 11 years ago, but this is the thing that drives me crazy with these people. If people are attacking someone for their fucking for something they posted online and you know that you posted shit online
Yeah.
and you like I'm not, and it sounds like I'm saying you should be afraid, you should just stay out of it because you're a bad person too. What I mean is say what you just said. Then don't fucking come out and join the attack. Come
Right.
out and say the truth. Like, well, it depends on what they said, but we've all done stuff that, let's be fair here. No, these people are fucking attacking people, and it turns out that they're worse than anything. And that has happened too many times for me to give a fuck about the next one. So when
Right.
somebody's going, well, how could you? Yeah, because I fucking seen it too many times. This isn't like I'm just like standing here with a blank slate and going like, well, I don't care. Fucking, I'm not, people are like, well, people are too quick to I don't know. I see it too much in my life where we've all been around someone that we know and we know them close and we know some of their secrets and they're fucking chastising someone else and and if you're if you're the kind of person that I am, unless it really needs your attention, you've also learned the lesson of like staying out of stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at the person going like, dude, you're a fucking horrible human being inside, and you're telling this
Right.
person how to live.
Right.
And the only time I've ever fucking like we've all been there. I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and get specific, but it's happened, and I've just learned, and yes, maybe even as a protection of myself, but like when I see people start to like talk about, I mean, even just take something as stupid as like being late at work, right? So if you're sitting there with your boss and I'm fucking 7 minutes late every single day to work, I don't even consider that late. If I'm sitting there with my boss and my boss is like, you know, I don't understand, fucking John's always 2 minutes late for work and I'm late is my thing, blah, 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 blah. Now, maybe I choose to stay out of that conversation. Um, Personally, sometimes I get engaged in them conversations where I'm like, well, look, I can understand how somebody can be, people in a lot of people's mind, you got this little window of time or whatever, not to be too on this onto one topic here, but it's like, but for me to turn around and say, yeah, late is late, blah, 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 blah. And then they just go check your fucking time slot. That's what makes me mad. Then they create a rule. Okay. Anyone fucking late 3 times, like just because you don't like the person that they're talking about, now that person gets fired, but now you got to fucking live up to your fucking to the rule you just set.
Yeah.
That's the thing I don't understand is why are people it's just a really because I personally like to feel that I've never done that. And I don't know where that comes from. It could come from a bad place. It could come from me knowing I'm not perfect, but at the same time, who the fuck is? So why are we going around and like if you're not perfect, then stay the fuck out of it. If you are perfect and you have an opinion, that's my other thing too. If you live what you speak, then yes. If someone stands up and says, for me, you can never post bad things. You always have to be positive, blah, blah. If that's how that person lives, then their opinion is their opinion. And, I have to accept that like my opinion is different and then it's debatable. But I just hate when people are acting like they want to have an honest debate and they're not being honest. How can you then have an honest debate? The
Right.
only way that you can honestly debate any topic is if two people are being honest with themselves and with the other person.
Yeah. Well, and dude, listen, I'm somebody that, I'm kind of brutally honest. And sometimes people take that the wrong way. You know what I mean? Like I remember growing up and getting gifts from my mom, and I would be like, people will watch me and be like, dude, you were unappreciative, because I'd be like, I don't like this. Now, to the outside, that looks completely unappreciative, spoiled little brat. But I'm looking at it like, I tell my mom, because like I tell my mom, I'm like, listen, mom, I'm not gonna wear this. I'd rather you take this back and keep your money. You know what I mean? Like I know, like, because I have to have these conversations, but my mom knows that's how I am, because I'm like, look, mom, I'm
It's
not gonna use it. Like, I don't want you to waste your money on, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you got me something that I'm really gonna use, I'm like, oh, okay, great. But like, it sounds like I'm an asshole, but I'm like,
dude, I suffered from the same disease and I wouldn't sit here and say I'm a brutally honest person. But if you saw me at Christmas, you would think like, this is where I understand your strife. If this ever happened to you, I mean, I literally had people around me, like my aunts or whatever, when they were there on Christmas and they think you're a fucking asshole, but
yeah,
they don't understand. I told my mom the whole way leading up to Christmas, don't get me this. Do not fucking get me any clothes.
yeah,
Like if you want to get me clothes, we'll go out together and get clothes. And the thing is, again, it's like everything's because the thing is I understand and understood the perspective of others looking at you going, what a
yeah.
fucking rat or something.
Right, right,
But
right.
it's like there was a lot more fucking into it than that. Even to this day, my mom will be like, so what size are right away? If it's around Christmas, I'm like, don't fucking get me any clothes.
Yeah,
Don't get me. And every once in a while, though, I'm like fucking wearing. I'm like, damn, this is pretty nice. But
yeah,
just don't get me any clothes. Don't do it. Don't get me anything. Don't go get me gifts that you just want to make sure I get gifts. It's just don't. I'd rather have nothing.
yeah, yeah.
I'd rather have nothing than be like disappointed and kind of like, because then I have to sit there like, now you go home for Christmas. And it's like, if your mom gets you something, for me anyway, I mean, like she'll still get me something. And I'm like, but I mean, I'm opening up, like I open up 5 gifts and I'm like, it's so great. Thanks. Cause I don't even, it's like I don't know if your mom's like this, but my mom never learned a fucking lesson.
No,
She's gotten less, but she's never learned the lesson. Like, just stop.
yeah,
What is this? A watch from where? I don't even fucking.
yeah. Like my mom would get me shit from like I remember one year she got me this fucking sweatsuit, and it was like Polo Co.
Yeah.
Like it
I'm
was
like,
like and it was like the label was like backwards or something. I was like, Mom, did you get this from the
Yeah.
McDade Mall, like the cheap stuff? And she's like, yeah, well, it said Polo on there, so like I just got it. And I'm like,
Then they
I
trying to convince you how
yeah.
fashionable it is.
And I'm like,
It's polo.
Mom, I appreciate it, but like I'm not gonna wear this. So like I'd rather you just get your money back. And but see, here's the weird thing about people too. Like, that's just the way I am. But people, some people, because they obviously they can't see the world like that. But it's also like, when you like call somebody about relationship advice, and
Oh,
you're like, oh man, this person, like, I can't believe she said this. I can't believe she did that. Now, a lot of people on the other end that you're crying to, your friend, they're gonna be like, yeah, fuck him, he's a jerk off, or fuck her, she's a bitch, blah 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 blah. And because they want you to feel good, because you're their friend, they want you to feel good. But like, I'm the type of person, I'm like, well, you were wrong. Like, maybe you shouldn't have done this. Or maybe, like, I'm trying to tell you, maybe they reacted this way because of something you did. Or like, I'm trying to play devil's advocate. And sometimes people don't want to hear that. And,
well,
you
you have to
know,
let me know. Like I say to people all the time, you want to feel good, or
yeah,
you want the truth. And when it comes to the girlfriend shit and all, like you're saying, we're very alike because what I say to people, I used to have this joke where I think it's something that girls don't get, right? Because here's the thing that guys get and girls don't. When girls, like, how many girls I knew where like I'd be looking over and I'd be like, doesn't she have a boyfriend? Like, I'm a bartender, and I'd be looking over and the girl would be like fucking, trying to fucking like get attention from guys or whatever.
yeah, yeah,
And I'd be like, what? And the girl's attitude would be like, oh, they're not, like, in other words, they're condoning what's going on because this girl feels like she doesn't get the attention that she deserves from the guy. And then a
right,
week later, they're broken up and she's crying because the guy cheated on her, but did he really cheat on her? They've been
right.
kind of broken up and she's devastated and her friends are like, your friend's an asshole. And I wouldn't be like trying to hurt anybody's feelings, but I'd be like, hey, not for nothing, but like, I just seen you fucking like dancing around fucking like a stripper at fucking at my bar trying to get attention.
Right.
And so in other words, though, if you look at every other guy, they're like any guy they ask, right? If there's just a random guy at the bar, I've seen this a million times, and they'll be like, "What's wrong with her?" And the minute the girl starts saying like, "Yeah, this guy, blah 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 blah," blah, I look over and you see some random guy like, "Oh, it's bullshit. I'd never do that. Whatever." And it's
Right,
like,
right,
yes, you would. And what I always say to that girl when I see her aside and I go like, they'll ask me whenever I get asked that question when they go, wouldn't you treat her good or whatever? Wouldn't you fucking say, wouldn't you tell her she's beautiful or something? I'd be like, yeah, right now I will. I don't know what I would do in a year. I don't know what I would do if I was banging you for a year. I'm not going to bring
right,
you flowers home every day. So
right.
anyway, with this being said, I feel that when girls do something wrong in a relationship, their girlfriend crew is nothing but supportive. And then when they reach outside their crew to the guys, guys are fucking weak. Even your best friend will be like, not really know what to say to the girl because she's hot. Well, maybe if it's your best friend, but in a guy's group, what if a guy was to say to me, like, if we were to be out partying and he was to be like, I'm gonna fuck this girl or something, and was telling me he had problems with his girlfriend or something, like I would say to the guy, like, dude, I don't care what you do, but if he came back to me a week later and was like, oh, she's saying this and she's whatever, I'd be like, yo, man, I'm with you and I understand you might still want to be with her, but like you fuck that girl. So, you gotta fucking figure your situation out, like, whatever.
Right.
Maybe that's me only knowing my side of things, but I just always laugh because I feel like guys will be more brutally honest with their guy friends when the guy friend is asking for advice because or at least I've always been where it's like, you're not going to cry on my shoulder when last week the reason why we're not with the fucking girl because she begged you to fucking come home and you were cheating on her. You know what I mean? Like I don't,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and I just wish that I cared anymore.
Well, that's the thing. That's exactly the thing with people, man, and how funny they are. Like they could literally be out cheating on their wives or girlfriend or whatever, and then when they roll, they're like, "I don't understand how this could happen."
I'm like, I know exactly how this happened.
You stuck your dick in somebody else, bro. That's how
Yeah,
that.
and
But
you
then
got
they'll,
caught.
you know what I'm saying? And they'll be like, dude, she's fucked up. Like I can't believe she like. It's like what?
Yeah.
But that just goes to show you, man, how fucked up people are. But yeah.
Well,
Speaking about Netflix, man, I watched just a little TV recommendation for the people, kind of lighten up the mood a little bit. Jupiter's Legacy is on Netflix. That was
I've
pretty good.
seen some. What is it? Is it a documentary? Or is it like a movie?
No, it's like it's just like a series. It's kind of like The Boys on Amazon, so it's kind of like about superheroes and shit, but it's like fucked up. Like they go through like some fucked up shit. So it's pretty cool. And
Well,
dude, a movie, a really feel good movie that my cousin told me about to watch. Did you ever hear of a movie called Our Friends?
no.
So my cousin was like, "Oh, you got to watch it. It's super emotional." And we were talking about Casey Affleck because I was like, dude, Casey Affleck, like, it's kind of fucked up because like I saw a picture of him standing next to his brother Ben and Matt Damon, and I'm like, do you imagine if like you're Casey Affleck and your brother is Ben Affleck? Like that fucking sucks. I mean, not to say that Casey Affleck's he's a decent looking guy, but it's fucking Ben Affleck. The dude's like fucking 6'4". He's got like a chiseled face. I mean, the dude's a good looking guy. You know what I mean? And Casey always looks sad. Casey
But
Affleck always looks like super like just Debbie Downer. You know
but
what I
I've
mean?
I've actually read some stuff on Casey Affleck, and I also think I think what you're saying is true, but I also think it really depends on who you are, who that person is. I've had people in my life where their accolades kind of caused me jealousy. But then
Yeah.
I've had people in my life where their accolade, like in other words, if you really like care and you see yourself as a unit, you love it, you know? Like when you
Right.
got that friend who you're like, he's gonna, I mean, I've had friends where like and I meant it. Like it wasn't coming from a place of insecurity. It's like I would go out with my girlfriend. I'd be warning her before we go, like, yo, you're gonna fucking fall in love with this guy. Just don't bang him, and then like make the joke when you're out, like, just do me a favor and don't bang my girlfriend or something, like joking, but at the same time, like really embracing the fact that like I have a friend who's like fucking 6'5", completely fucking jacked up. He fucking teaches different languages in different countries. He's super rich. He inherited fucking money from Hank's fucking or Frank's soda, the one that's made in Philly, the fucking root beer that was
Okay.
famous.
Okay.
And it's like sometimes you just gotta fucking accept, or you get, like I always look at. Like a gang, if people are part of your thing, you have to see your worth. I use it with the Rambo scenario where Rambo was Rambo, right? And Rambo could fucking take on whatever. But at the same time, there was only one man that can control Rambo, and he was a washed up colonel who didn't treat Rambo like anything else than what he was, like, but does that make sense? I know I'm saying
Yeah.
something dumb, but it's more like I think as you get older and you look around at things, you got to stop being insecure about certain people, where they excel, and
Yeah.
accept that you excel in your thing and utilize your group's powers. That makes sense.
Yeah. That was
So
that was very
I would send Ben Affleck in, like, go get the pussy, Ben. And then I'd come in like little Casey Affleck, like, I'll take the fucking leftover chops.
yeah. Well, well, dude, I'll tell you what. So this movie, Our Friend, it was Casey Affleck, Jason Segal, and or Jason Segel, whatever his name is, and Dakota Johnson. I think her name is the girl from
You got it.
50 Shades of Grey, right? Dakota
Hmm.
Johnson. And dude, it was a great, great movie. It was a great story. I highly recommend it, dude. It got me choked up a little bit. It was basically about these three characters. She was involved in theater. I think Jason was somehow a little bit involved with it, and she was married to Casey Affleck's character, and they all became friends. And it kind of bounces around their whole life. And Dakota Johnson's character develops cancer. Jason Segel moves in with them. They're a married couple. They have kids. He moves in with them to kind of help with them, with, with the kids and her having cancer. And without getting too deep into it, obviously it's a little bit weird. A grown man moves. He's a single guy. So it's weird, but you see how it was just a beautiful story. And it was based off a real article, because the guy, Casey Affleck's character, was a writer, and he wrote this article or short story about the experience, and it was published and then made into a movie. And it was great, man. It was one of those movies, like, there was no narratives, there was no anything. It was just real life. Like, those are the movies that it really kind of punches me in the gut. And
well, I love when it's linked to something real too.
That's what I'm saying. It was just about relationships, about life, how you deal with it, how you handle. And just obviously Jason Segal's character had his issues, and it was really well done. My cousin recommended it, and she was like, I can't believe it didn't win an award or anything.
Well, since you're recommending shows, you know what, because of Nick DiPaolo, I just kind of like, I'm getting ready to go to a show. So I wanted to like fucking like watch. I never really like looked at all of his stuff, but the weird thing about Nick DiPaolo is even when when I first even thought about getting in touch with him or whatever, it's like, I seen him and I'm like, I know this guy. There's some characters that are celebrities or whatever, where you don't really, if I like, you mentioned that guy earlier who was dating the 16-year-old. He's been in like 30 movies that you've seen, but you're like, I don't really know if I know about that guy.
Right.
And so, what Nick DiPaolo is known for? Do you remember Tough Crowd?
No.
You definitely do, though. Trust me. It was on Comedy Central for like 10 years. I could be exaggerating, maybe a little shorter time. But don't you remember it was like a political show hosted by Colin Quinn and Kevin Hart, Dave Chappelle, like every comedian ever was on it.
Okay.
But Nick DiPaolo was like a fixture on it. And so basically the reason why I'm bringing this up is, for anybody that knows of Tough Crowd, dude, it's exactly what we need right now. And what it is it was Patrice O'Neal and Nick DiPaolo were like really good friends. Patrice O'Neal is like a 300-pound, 6-foot-some black dude, and Nick DiPaolo is a white dude. And they're both known for their gritty kind of like, nowadays would be considered racist, but back then kind of edgy comedy,
Right.
And
right.
So they would say, so Colin Quinn would say, fucking, what do you like? One of the ones I watched the other night was they were arguing about like Obama or somebody, like, Obama was just a senator, I think, but they were just talking about like who should vote or whatever. And basically they're just ripping each other apart, and it's black jokes, white, and then they're laughing and hugging while they're doing it. They're saying horrible shit to each other about Italians, about blacks, about whites, about gays. And there'll be like gays on the show. And I'm thinking in my head, like, I really think that a show like Tough Crowd would be amazing right now. Then somebody else's argument would be, but no one would ever air it. Well, that's why there's fucking YouTube. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, could you imagine a show right now where it was like no holds bars, but like, I would like to imagine that comedians are still like that underneath. Like, even like there's woke ones, but there's still comedians. Like, I think Dave Chappelle, it would still be able to fucking sit there and banter like that with the purpose of kind of like getting one over. Like, it's like they can take it and they want to be the winner of the argument comedically. But dude, you got to watch it. Just do yourself a favor and watch. They're like, fucking watch 5 minutes of Tough Crowd. And I really think it would be absolutely phenomenal to see that right now, because it also would ease things up. Like, even watching this show from fucking 15, 20 years ago, they would say something and I'm like, oh man, that's crazy. But then to see Kevin Hart, and that's another thing that made me laugh, is you got Kevin Hart, Dave Chappelle, Patrice O'Neill, like every famous comedian has come on that show. Cause then you also got like the ones that are on the other side of it. Like you got Tom Papa, Bill Burr, like all these
Yeah.
people coming on. And you think back now, like, oh, you're so woke, but yet you guys were saying horrible shit about each other on this show,
Yeah. Oh
you know,
yeah.
and
Right.
for years and for years,
Right.
you know, it ain't like the show. And that's another thing I thought was kind of crazy is that it was a not to say it shouldn't be allowed, but it's like it wasn't like, you know, there was one episode of a show where something was crazy. It was like if you really wanted to just go watch 5 seasons of Tough Crowd, you'd probably have a different opinion of every famous comedian right now, you know, that's playing woke. You'd be like, wait a second, dude. You were ripping that gay dude on there the other day.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, dude, this goes back. I mean, I don't know. This kind of goes back to the fact that you're not seeing rockets fired outside of your house
Yeah.
right now. So it would be nice. It would be nice if you just lightened up and kind of be grateful for the things, even the things that you think you need and you don't have. Be grateful for what you do, man. I mean, it's just, it's just wild. It's wild to see, like, again, to see what's happening in Colombia, what's happening in Israel, and then to go on Instagram, people will be like, America's so horrible. Like, I can't even stand living here. And I'm like, you have no concept. You just have no concept of like living anywhere else, and you haven't faced any real hardship in your life. Like, that's how good we have it here. And it's not even just coming from a straight white male's perspective, because even some of the poor minorities are the richest in the world here.
Well, life is
And
hard.
I mean, it just there's no matter where you live, it's going to be difficult.
Like,
What kind of pain do you want to endure? Do you want to endure a guy maybe making a racist comment to you, or do you want to live in a country where you could potentially just get shot for no, like,
but
it's just
I even believe people aren't making this is the thing that like except for maybe if you start fucking trolling through Twitter, but this is what I mean, like it's very fucking rare, if not ever, that I've ever seen someone literally turn around and make a racist comment to someone, you
right,
know?
right,
But that's what I'm trying to say is like I actually think that the difference is like, do you want to live in a world where you are not necessarily fucking the elite and you feel like whatever position you're in, you're kind of being shit on financially? Or do you want to live in a world where you're literally being shit on for your fucking race or for your ethnicity or for your religion? And it has nothing to do with financial at this point because you basically don't even fucking have an option because of that thing, you know, like basically like life is fucking hard and life like personally I hate to I don't want to say that it's not like I'm saying it in a depressed way, but as I've learned as you grow older is like life kind of fucking sucks, but at the same time that's what kind of is life. Like it's like the fact that you're living this thing where you're constantly questioning like why the fuck am I even here? Life is weird. What is life? What am I doing? What am I supposed to do? The actual journey of life is how do I find a way to to find things that bring me joy in this shitty thing, you know?
yeah,
That's
yeah,
how
yeah.
that's kind of how I see it. And
Well,
people might think that I'm saying that like life sucks because my life sucks. No, my life is that's the thing. A lot of things suck, but when I get caught up in sitting there saying my life sucks, I immediately go, no, it doesn't. It doesn't suck at all compared to some other people's fucking lives, you know? So, like, unless you're fucking really in the bottom of the fucking barrel, I mean, we're all fucking working. We're all trying to get a fucking paycheck. Somebody's always trying to step on our fucking dollar, but like that's where we all are. I mean, you know,
oh yeah. Well, dude, and I kind of wanted to end this, but I'll tell you what. Going off of that is something that I heard last week that just really fucking hit home with me. Jordan Peterson was in an interview and he was like talking about, people struggling in life. And he was like, look, the number one thing for people and the meaning for their lives that they find are children. And if you don't have children, then it's strong relationships like a marriage. And if you don't have that, then you better have a really good career that you enjoy. And if you don't have that, then you better be extremely artistic and talented at something. Like, and he was like, and if you don't have those four things, you're really, really, really going to struggle in life. And he goes, not many people make it out of that. And I'm like, fuck, dude.
Yeah, thanks, George.
I'm like, fuck, man. That just really put some shit into perspective for me. And I'm like, dude, if there was anything, like, I'm that guy that falls in that percentage of none of those things.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and he's like, and basically he said, he's like, those people, if you don't have that, you're going to be in trouble in life because you really are going to struggle. And I'm like, yep. I can relate to that.
And it's something I can't wrap my fucking head around either, is like when you look at other people that are very, and we've talked about this before, I believe you mentioned somebody you worked with, where you look at somebody and you go like, God, you are like, sometimes I'm jealous of the person. Like, my life isn't that bad. It's more that I'm doing something that I don't want to be doing. It's not that what I'm doing isn't the career. Like, I look around at some people that I know and they're like loving it. Like, if you ask them, they're like, being a bartender is the greatest fucking thing I've ever done. I don't want to do anything else. And I'm serious. There are a lot of people like that. And
but well, not to cut you off, but are there other aspects? Like, are they married? Or do they have kids, or they have a deep relationship?
When they have that, right? When they have that,
it makes other aspects that are shitty more tolerable.
When they have that, I understand it, right? The ones I don't understand, though, are the people that are like enjoying life in the way that I feel is, you know what I mean? Like, their idea is like, dude, I go out to bars, I meet a different, like, all the things that I did that would kind of make me come home and cry at night, Right. And this person could easily be lying, but some people you can just tell, like, they love it, And then, of course, yeah, there's like, it's very rare to find that guy, but some of them fucking love it. And, I just chose to never really go that route of like being the guy who's like the bartender guy and fucking enjoying it, because I feel that has a fucking bad ending. That's kind of why I like cut off drinking and stuff at one point, because I started to realize, like, I literally went through my life in my head. I said, what have I done in my 20s? And I would sit down with friends and they'd be like, dude, what are you so upset about? Like, you had any fucking girl you wanted. You fucking, anywhere you go, people fucking know your name. And I started thinking in my head, like, oh, so my life is going to be summed up by like, what did Danny do? And it's like, I could go into a bar and get a free drink and people knew who I was, right. Whoop-de fucking do. Like, what? I want to leave a footprint of some kind,
Right.
And so, whatever. I mean, I guess it is what it is, but sometimes I also think it's funny though that your journey's not over, and it's like you work at a nursing home. So take a look at those people, right? Those people have been us at one point, even in their 40s, thinking this is the end of the world, whatever they were doing. And I think it's funny that even though all I've ever known was bartending, I still believe that at one point in my life, I'll be known as something else. And people will have to tell someone, he used to be a bartender. And I think that that's so weird to think that's something that I've been known as my whole life, even if it's just because I fucking get too old and go on Social Security or something. Like, somebody will have to whisper in somebody's ear, like, that dude was a bartender for like 40 years. And they think, oh, you mean Dan, the guy that always fucking sits by the window and drinks coffee, doesn't talk to anybody, and hates himself?
You could be the next AOC, bro.
Nah, but hey, maybe that's the other thing that is great about this country too, is that if you look at a lot of people's stories, it's like they didn't even know what was happening and it happened. You know,
Right. Right.
they took one step somewhere, and but I think that the main thing that I haven't done, and I think I do it more now than I've done in my past, is I fully understand that nobody's gonna. I've fully accepted, and going back to like people having a crutch, like I'm sure I had crutches in my life. Like I'm sure I had like blah, 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 you know, whatever. Like you complain about like if this person or that person or whatever. But what I realized is even if that's true, like even if the guy at my job keeps pushing me down, or that the whole thing is nobody's gonna fucking come in and save you. So nobody's gonna it ain't like you can't just keep living life and hope that like somebody fucking sees the potential in you and grabs you and throws you into a better position. The only way it's going to happen is you have to take steps on that journey yourself. And I really believe that, you know, going back to the brick by brick statement, like you just do it. And that's one reason why I love podcasting is because like, yeah, personally, I kind of feel like we've been doing it a long time and the results that we've gotten from it aren't amazing. But I also know that me and you haven't put in the 100% effort, you know?
Right. Right.
But at the same time, sometimes I look at like it's funny because you would think like I've got what a fucking 126 followers on Instagram. That's nothing, right? But at the same time, I was looking at it the other day and I was like, it used to be 8,
Right.
you know? And
Right.
and
Right.
and then I'm thinking like I used to post something and you'd be lucky if you got a like, you know?
Right. Right.
And then you got to think like we met Jay, you know,
Right.
and
Right.
and 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 we met, you know, like certain people that we've had on the podcast that it's kind of cool, you know. It's kind of I've met people and made friends, and there's certain people that are other podcasters that I talk to on Instagram, and on one angle of things, I also believe that things come faster the more you're going towards them. So the journey was so hard in the beginning because it was like, dude, I don't even have any. I'm here trying to fucking promote a podcast, and I got 8 followers on Instagram.
Right.
And so a year later, there's not a lot more, but I feel like it's the process is only going to get easier. And it may be hard to take that first step, but as long as you keep taking those steps and as long as you keep moving in that direction, you're moving into a fucking world where there's opportunities that are now available to you that weren't before, simply because you know we may not be any better than we were day one, but we can live by what we do now. Like I'm a fucking podcaster, period. That's what I do. I don't mind even fucking telling people it at this point. I don't care, you
Right.
know?
Right.
And so I think it's pretty neat I've never done anything like I've been in the extra in movies, or I've tried to do something with acting, or I tried to do this, or I've done things in film or whatever. And like, but I would never tell someone, I would never sit down at a table and be like, yeah, I'm a filmmaker or I'm an actor, you know?
Right. Right.
But I 100% have no insecurity in saying like I do a podcast. You might
Right.
not like it, but I do one.
Yeah, you might get offended, but no, dude, I'm the same way. I mean, just going back to the Israel and Palestine issue. I'm in the shower and I'm like, dude, it would be cool if I could get some like a Palestinian and a Jewish person to come on the podcast and talk.
Yeah.
That would be cool to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, and before I wouldn't really have a reason to make that happen, or I wouldn't even think about it. You know what I mean? Or just somebody, just even if we didn't have them both talk, just somebody from Israel or something and tell their story, somebody from Palestine. You know what I'm saying? Like there's like so many different things, and maybe it never happens. But just the fact that I can think about it and have that and be like, oh, that would be cool. You know what I mean? It gives me a small, purpose.
And like I was saying about the like taking steps towards it, and what I kind of meant about you know, the progression of things. It's like if you were to tell that dude before, uh, yeah, like even though we don't got a lot of views, we don't got a lot of whatever. If you were to tell the dude like episode 2, if you were to be like, yo, I got this idea, you know, and you ask for those 2 people to do it, they'll look and be like, you got one video, you got whatever. Like I just the other day looked at our YouTube channel, just like however I normally look at it, I just look at the video that was last, look at
Yeah.
the analytics. And I was like, let me just see what our channel looks like. I hit the channel. And it's like, fuck, I'm sitting here and I'm like, dude, this thing is fucking loaded. Like, I think it told me like how much hours people listen to. So it was like people have listened to like 500 hours in total. And
Yeah.
I'm like, even if that's fucking 20 people or whatever it is, like, or even if it's 1 million people for 1 second, like someone has listened to 500 hours of me and Tommy talking bullshit,
Right, right.
you
And
know?
dude, and we're not even anything fancy either. I mean, everything is basic. You know what I mean? It is what it is. Like, so even to attract some people, I mean, I go on people's YouTube videos and they got all these fucking insane graphics and different
Yeah.
fucking music and cool things. And like ours is pretty basic. Like, and somehow people are tuning in. I mean, I don't know, but you know,
I'll take it. They come
you
in,
know,
they're like, let's see how much Danny fucking hates himself today.
well, yeah, I mean, but you know what? Rogan was just talking about it. I was just listening, and he was like, people told me it was stupid. They didn't get it. And he goes, and we didn't really have a lot of people listening. And he was like, and a lot of people think that you need the shtick. You know what I mean? Like there has to be something about you. You know what I mean? And he goes, but you just fucking talk to people.
Yeah.
And we certainly don't have a shtick other than we're just a couple of regular guys, bartender and a fucking trash man. But as we continue to progress, I would love to be able to have just conversations with everybody, man.
Well,
Because
guest to me, it's all about guest. And I'm not talking about like getting like I think we both have the same thought where it's like when I think of a guest, I don't think of like, oh, let me get this famous person that can whatever. Like I more or less think of like, you know, if there's a certain thing going on in the world, I'd love to just get 2 regular motherfuckers together and have that conversation. And that's to me what I would love to just see. And I think we're both good at it where I mean, we can engage in conversation with anybody. And that's what I think is even cool about even just like last week with having someone like Jay on. It's kind of a cool thing to be able to be like, just I never saw your face before. I never heard your voice before. And then I'm going to send you that fucking email and you're going to pop in on my fucking Zoom call. And it's like, hey, and then you have a friend, like to a
right,
certain extent, you make a
right, right,
friend.
yeah,
And it's kind of interesting to me. And I could only imagine like if we were to be kind of like become, of some kind of relevance or whatever. Like, could you imagine the world? Like if like all of a sudden it's like fucking, yeah, I know this guy, I know that guy, I know this guy. And that's what probably happened to Rogan in a sense is like, after a while you build up this network of people from like, in your own world, you only know what you know, but now you have a friend who fucking survived the civil war in Kosovo and all these collection of fucking like, these Jordan Petersons and people that are completely opposed to Jordan. You've just got access to all these different opinions and points of view and intelligent people and stuff. And it's pretty neat.
yeah, yeah. So on that note,
On that
uh,
note, we will see you guys again next week. We're trying to be on a better schedule. But listen,
getting
if you
old,
if you took any,
getting old, yeah, getting old
yeah,
and working more is a little tough, but
yeah, but I'll tell you, I don't really like it because it shows me how what we do in society, but I am so fucking disconnected from what the fuck's going on because there's just so much going on. But I hate to say that because I feel like something's winning because you should be paying attention. Some people might say like that's good, like it's good,
yeah,
but how good is it if fucking you're just getting raped and you're not paying attention? But
Right, right.
but at the same time, man, I'm fucking I just completely checked out of it, and I'm dead serious when I say this. If anybody's listening, anybody wants to fucking check somebody out, do yourself a favor and fucking check out Theo Von. He's fucking he's I'm addicted to him at this point because he's super interesting. He's super fucking crazy. He talks kind of fucking goofy, but at the same time, so if you pay attention, there's a lot of serious intellectual shit going on underneath it all. I think he's the epitome of a podcaster in the sense of other podcasts are like, I'm being me and people are following along. This dude, I feel like he's like that fucking, like Delilah, like fucking that midnight radio where people call in and tell all their fucking problems. Like he has a fucking phone number up and people call in and they're like, dude, I'm thinking about suicide. And then he starts fucking like shooting the shit with them. One of the most interesting ones was somebody called him after he did a stand-up show and he actually responded to it where the guy called up and was like, because they leave messages and the guy's message was like, yo, I went to a fucking thing. I'm a big fan of yours. I had brought my girlfriend with me and I went to your show and you hung out with us afterwards. And then I found out a week later that you fucking banged my girlfriend. And I was like, oh, is this really happening? And Theo Von like fucking gave a breakdown. He was like, I'm sorry, bro. I did do it. He's like, yeah, I mean, like I'm not perfect. I'm whatever. And then like now they're like buddies. Like he fucking sends him tickets and he apologized to him and told him, what was I to do? And then that guy came on the show later and like thanked him and said, to be honest with you, I understand how it happened, but at the same time, I really liked that girl. So in a weird way, I feel like, you know, that whole incident with you showed me that she wasn't the person I thought she was. I'm like, this is fucking insane.
I mean, dude, I was thinking that. I'm like, in a way, you did him a favor.
That's what he says. But the weirdest part too is you just gotta, I don't know. I like goofy people. So on one, like this is what I mean, where like on one angle, he's being real fucking serious and you can see when he's being serious, but then he'll still say like, you're right, man, I couldn't take my eyes off that ass. I'm like, what the fuck? This is pretty crazy. But anyway, yeah, so I've been just paying attention to comedy and shit again, and there's a lot of fucking whatever, but I just can't fucking take, because it's everything we said. I'll say it, you said it, Tom, I'll say it again. We told you gas was going to go up. We fucking I feel like we called so many things on this thing. We told you to buy fucking Dogecoin when it was fucking 3 cents. What more do you fucking want from us?
Yeah. Those
Jesus.
uneducated, non-book reading motherfuckers, they don't know what they're talking about.
Tommy's fucking reading books now. I don't know what's gonna happen. I feel like this podcast is gonna fucking take off. He's gonna be like Jordan Peterson all of a sudden.
Yeah. No, he doesn't have a PhD up in his wall. He don't know what the fuck he's talking about.
But yo, even that, the Theo Von guy, apparently him and fucking Jordan, like as goofy as fucking Theo Von is, even Rogan was like fucking surprised that Jordan Peterson and Theo Von became friends. Jordan Peterson's been on Theo Von's show fucking twice, and you should watch it because it's so different, and it's funny because even I think Jordan Peterson even sees it where Theo Von sounds kind of fucking, it's like his stick that he kind of acts a little dumber, but Jordan Peterson's like fucking picking up on like, but that's actually it's so innocent and it's so fucking childish. It's actually the underlying fucking issue of the fucking topic,
He's like insightful in a down south hick way.
Yeah, it's weird. But all right, guys. Well, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed yourselves. We got on a lot of good stuff on this one. Tommy fucking read like a fucking Morgan Freeman narration of a book, which was interesting.
Yeah, I hope everybody fucking gets through that and the rest of it.
It'll be fine. I think it'll be fine. I think you did good. You sounded like you should fucking apply for one of them jobs where you read the books.
Yeah, you did good, kid. You did good. You did real good, kid.
You should read the book. You should be like a book reader, but you do it like Cliff Notes. Like you'd be like, I don't really know what he's saying here, but I'm going to tell you, he's fucking basically doing a test.
Well, my uncle was like, you know what? You do a lot of like accents and all this stuff. He's like, you should be one of those voiceover guys. And I'm thinking, the way I read that fucking book, can you imagine me on like a Pixar fucking film? Like I'd be like, so that blah 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 blah. Like I sound like a fucking moron.
It's so funny what goes on in your head too when you start to read. You're and it also shows you how much that shit gets involved because because you brought it up earlier, even when you're reading at school, it's like I can read fine, and most times I can read fine. Like perfect example when we do our intro. 99% of the time I do it without a fucking hitch. But the one day I was like, I started fucking overthinking it. I shit the bed on it. And it's like, you got to find a space where you're just like, I'm just reading. You know?
The pressure, it's like stepping on stage, man. You know what I mean? Because like when I have during rehearsal, like a lot of times I sound a lot better. And then when I'm on stage and the lights, and then there's audience, you're like, to be or not to be, I don't know.
Well, like I still think I'm a pretty good singer and shit, but I remember when I actually really used to want to pursue it, and I used to go to this place and people would do open mic nights and shit, and the guy I would go with, we were like working on his CD and shit, and it was all about him, but I used to be like, dude, I think I can fucking sing. So he'd be like, all right, sing this. And I actually would try and sing it in front of him. And he would always tell me, he would be like, you can sing, but you're not ready. And he explained to me like all the different shit you have to do to be ready. But what he meant by that was, it was weird. It was like when he said sing, all of a sudden my fucking body went into a different fucking nervous zone. And I would sing and my fucking, it'd be I'd be like nervous vibration shit in my voice. And it's so obvious, you can't do it until you get over that kind of bullshit.
That fight or flight.
Yeah.
Well, and I know we keep trying to end this, but quick story that would be great. Unfortunately, now that you just mentioned you singing, it's a shame that we couldn't use or find.
Oh my God.
The song that you and I sung on the Wildwood Boardwalk when we were teenagers is
the worst.
Great Balls of Fire. And
we did the Humpty Dance, but something happened to the Humpty Dance where, see, there's like 3 or 4 verses or something. And I remember when we did that, there's like one whole verse where me and you like didn't know what we're like, bleh, we're like messing. We were trying to help each other. But the Great Balls of Fire was amazing. And the reason why I'm mad about that tape is it wasn't but like 10 years ago that I found that tape. So it exists. Problem is I found it when I was living at my mom's house or something, or staying there for a moment. And then it went back into the fucking vault, of shit. Yeah. Right. And so now I wouldn't even know where to begin, but that fucking tape exists.
It's out there.
Yeah, it's out there.
That's like,
you didn't get a copy? We only had one copy?
Dude, I don't remember. I wouldn't even know where the hell. I made mixtapes that I would love to fucking find, even though I don't even have a cassette deck to play it on.
Dude,
I thought to find some.
I thought that was the greatest thing in the world. Not the tape, but like, think about where we're at now. I still think that was a different kind of cool thing because you don't see it that way. It got taken over with the video shit. Like you make your own video on the boardwalk.
Right.
But that was like a real recording studio setup. And you could fucking sing the song. And it was the kind of thing, if you ask me, where if you really wanted to go and if you were like, I got to make a demo tape and I'm going to show these people what I could do. Like if you went up there and said, I want to do these, like, I feel like less people went in there just to have fun. And there was a lot of people up there. Like it was like, I'm going to give my shot. I'm going to shoot my shot now, Yeah. Whereas then it all turned into just like 4 drunk girls making a video and singing a song. And that caught on. You know what I'm trying to say? Because I went up there again. I was like, yo, let's make a fun. They're like, oh, we'll make a video. And I went in a booth and like behind you was green screen and it was like fucking stars and shit all around you. And you're just like doing stupid karaoke. That thing was like the exact fucking track, like the whatever. But all right, you guys are probably already gone, which is great. You probably left fucking right around when Tommy started reading his fucking book. We probably lost you then. And we're still talking to you.
We lost all our subscribers.
They're like, I thought these fucking guys don't read, man.
Yeah. These guys are supposed to be funny.
All right. All right, Tom. Love you, man. Guys, make sure you like and subscribe and all that good stuff. And we'll catch you next time.
Adios.
On layman's terms. All right. Oh, Tom, you didn't get laid? You did get laid? You don't want to tell us? Tommy's been hiding something. He's been very fucking, he went on a date and he won't fucking tell us anything. Maybe we'll save it for the next one.
Yeah, we'll have to save it for the next one.
All right, guys. See you later.